Hello, welcome to Plat Chat VALORANT episode 38. It's a wonderful day here in Austin, and I'm excited to get things going.
Is this airing on TBS? This is such a pleasant intro.
I'm just feeling pleasant this morning. I'm feeling pleasant. All right, let's let the world burn. The hell with all of you, especially you. And I don't know, let's get on with the show. There's a patch. There's a patch.
This was the fastest intro.
Yeah, this was compared to the Bryn rambling intro.
I don't know.
Get down to
it's not
business.
going to be fast as soon as you keep talking, because I know this is about to segue into some random tangent.
You guys have a good weekend?
Oh, well, I mean, here we go. Here we go.
I'm trying to...
We had a 3.5-hour episode last week. I'm thinking, all right, we need to get on the money. Everything needs to be on beat. Kurt's got things to do today. We can't just lock him up in the production room for 7 hours.
I have literally nothing to do today, Josh.
You got nothing to do.
Okay, he has literally nothing to do.
4-hour
so that's
episode.
just a bold-faced lie. That's just a bold-faced lie.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do this weekend, Connor?
You know, I finished building the coffee table I broke. I got the parts for that. Now I still have the rest of the parts because for some reason they want me to send the rest. They sent me a whole new table and they want me to send the rest back. I only took like 2 parts out of it, and they just want me to send the rest back. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I got to do that. And other than that, you know, did some yard work. We discussed our immunities. You know, I'm jacked to the tits with immunity soon. I'm going to be absolutely jacked. But currently only at the first shot. And I think I think everyone except Balla here has gotten 1 jab.
Avast, have you had a haircut?
No, this is my same hair. Same exact hair. The difference is I feel like every week, by the way, you ask me if my hair has changed.
Always looks different.
It's just because I'm wearing earbuds. I'm wearing earbuds. So this way I don't put a dent in my hair before I go to work. I got earbuds specifically for that. So I don't have a big helmet head. I don't have a helmet head type of thing.
I see.
That's all there is.
Yeah, that is a problem.
You got a dent in your head, Balla?
Yes, every morning. Because I always put my headphones on when it's wet too, so I like don't even give it time to like settle or anything. So every time I come upstairs, it's just like
warming it to the headset right away.
I just have a soft skull, so that's why I have a.
Wow, I feel like that's bad.
Not
I feel like that's bad.
to force whatsoever.
No, not even slightly. Yeah, if I wear headbands that are too tight, I end up looking like a peanut.
Headbands. Now I need to
I feel like you need
really
some calcium or something if your skull is like an eggshell. Your skull is like an eggshell. It just forms.
Built for you.
I just want to see you on a basketball court with a headband now, just like falling out.
Have we had enough funny banter then? Are we allowed to move on to the patch now?
Did you wake up on the wrong side of the bed today?
I woke up on a very nice side of bed. I was pleasant with my intro, and then you're like, nah. Let's not
Wyatt's
move
just
it
the
on.
instigator.
I was asking how people's weekends were.
Listen.
Okay, fine. We'll talk about Viper and Yoru. Oh my God.
You realize this is a Valorant podcast. You should be excited to talk about Viper and Yoru.
Yeah.
Sure. And Bucky.
Fine.
Don't forget Bucky. It's in there. Bucky's in there.
Yeah, they did nerf the Bucky.
This was actually a really cool patch. This is one of the best patches that they've had, I think. This is a fun one.
Yeah.
You can't be mauled about the Bucky anymore. Viper and Yoru mains. Delighted. HRTF. Ooh.
Oh yeah,
I'm actually excited. The audio in this game, I'm not a fan of the audio in the game. I'm looking forward to trying that out.
Okay, well, let's go through it a little bit at a time. They did promise Viper and Yoru changes, but they didn't really say what they were before this before this patch came out. And I guess we'll get to the HRTF stuff. What's right?
I said for good reason, because like these are some significant changes that I think people would have already been mauling about if they had hinted at it at all.
All right, well, let's take a look. What's first on the itinerary here? I only very briefly went over this patch earlier. What's first on the list? The Viper updates?
Viper.
All right. Walk me through it, somebody that actually read this earlier.
Toxin. Massive.
You're going to literally walk me through it. You're going to literally read all of the words.
For one.
You're not going to summarize it and add any analysis. You're just going to...
I'll give you a little summary. Well, the main thing at the top here is that enemies that cross through all of the Viper things now, you just instantly take 50 decay from just touching any of Viper's utility now.
That's ridiculous.
Which is very significant. And then I guess to not have overtuned it too crazy, the decay over time is decreased. And then the delay before health regen, you just get your health back faster when you step out of it by a second. So they tried to not overtune it by decreasing the numbers elsewhere, but still just touching the cloud and taking 50 that's pretty crazy. That's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, if you just put down a smoke in a choke point and then pop it as they walk through, and they all just get 50 damage immediately, there's like, what, 3 players there? That's instantly 150 damage. You just spray down with some kind of SMG. That does seem kind of ridiculous. I don't think Viper was in that poor of a position. This is a crazy buff.
It also like compounds with the vulnerability too, right? So like when you walk into the Molly and you get vulnerable and you're also decayed already to 50 HP, that is just crazy. I have no idea how that's gonna feel, right? As soon as you walk into it to anything, it's just like, wait a second. And I don't even think like basically nobody has played against Viper significant amount of times unless you're a pro player. But like, I don't even think that the notifications when the smoke comes back or the wall has like a big sound and then it curtains through. But the smoke is just like boom, all of a sudden.
I forgot that this was to do with the wall as well. That's
it's everything.
Wall is called
it's
toxic
literally
screen,
everything,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard anyone say toxic screen before, by the way. Literally never heard it. It's the wall. But don't call it toxic screen. But if you walk through the wall at all, you take immediately 50 damage.
Yeah.
That's a large amount of damage. That is a large amount of damage.
Yeah. I mean it does affect, just flashing through the wall, trying to peek off that, finding the timing, trying to peek off of it. There's a bit more of a disadvantage of actually going for that now. And then they also, small change, but to both the smoke and the wall, now after you die, they stay up for a couple of seconds. They don't just immediately drop. And then what else was it with the smoke?
Well, you can redeploy redeploy the smoke immediately now, but it's a temporary charge, as in like it lasts for that round versus a permanent charge. So
Right.
Yeah.
And you can pick it up from farther. So it actually makes these are like ridiculous buffs because not only have you made her, if you just touch the wall, do you become like instantly down to the 50 decay, but Viper now has more ability to keep the smokes up longer and redeploy them more fluidly. So it's just kind of ridiculous how large these buffs are across the board.
I think we basically still have the same kind of dynamic, except now we have at least one smoke for retakes, or like a re-exec. Where not even really a re-exec, because usually if you're going to use it for an exec, you're not going to be able to pick it up. 400 is not enough for that. But on defense, at least you can go use it for a retake now, where you haven't been able to do that before. You had to really think about your wall placements to use it for retakes if you wanted that, or save your wall for retake on defense, which I think we saw a lot of NA teams doing. So I don't think that dynamic changes. It just makes her more on par with the other controllers. The pickup ability is what I'm talking about, right? It just makes it on par with Brim, on par with Omen.
I remember on a previous Plat Chat episode, we said that if they continued buffing Viper, she would end up being shit, but also broken. And what I mean by that is like, you don't want to play her, but you're forced to play her because she's so busted. And it's not like she adds a huge amount of like great creativity, or she doesn't fit the style that a lot of teams want to play, but she just is so broken with her individual abilities that you're forced to play her because it's oppressive to play against. I feel like that's what she's heading towards, to be honest. I don't know. These changes they don't make her more fluid. They just make it, well, actually, I suppose the smoke does a little.
Being able to redeploy your smoke, I think, and also you're able to put out your molly a little bit faster too, because they decrease the equip time. So like, I kind of feel like these changes do make her a little bit more fluid and being able, like Balla was talking about, and actually use it for defensive retakes at least much more effectively.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking about the 50 damage that you get immediately when you touch any of her stuff.
That specifically, I feel like just makes it so strong, specifically in ranked. Like people are going to start feeling oppressive.
I mean, imagine
when
pistol rounds and bonus rounds, and you touch the 50 decay and you just vaporize.
Yeah, that is ridiculous, actually.
And the snake bite is like, it's insta mollies, right? So now she's somewhat more of a sentinel too, right? It's not like she could delay for a long time with
that. Is actually what it seems like they're pushing her towards. Is being this like locking down a site anchor kind of thing, where you can use your mollies, but you can also use the smoke as well. If it does 50 damage as you walk through it, plus decay when you're walking through, when you can use that smoke as like a blockade in a choke point. Like, good luck getting through that if they're holding on the other side of it. This is a bit weird, honestly.
I do find it I find it a bit worrying because I actually think Viper was in a pretty good spot. Like I think she did have a role in the game. It was a bit map dependent, sure, but it wasn't as if she wasn't being used, and it wasn't as if what she could provide couldn't potentially be viable on more maps in the future too. Like in the ways that you see how effective her wall is on Icebox. There could certainly be maps in the future where that will be the case again, right? It may just be a bit map dependent now regarding her viability. So I worry about the 50 damage being too strong immediately. I think some of the other things, the faster equip time with the molly and the being able to redeploy the smoke, I think those are good, and I think that those are very reasonable changes. But I worry about buffing her further because I think she already has a place in the game, and I do also worry that maybe this might be one of those situations where it's a bit more dependent on the actual ranked data, not so much what we're seeing from high-level teams, because she requires an immense amount of coordination to actually be a viable agent that you pick.
I mean, people still think of her as being the throw pick in ranked.
Yeah.
Even, I don't know, like, Yoru, everyone has just forgotten was even added to the game. But Viper is like the meme throw pick, you know? Yeah. Even though if you actually get a Viper in your ranked games, normally they're nerdy as fuck. They have all sorts of lineups, and they're probably going to win you the game, actually.
Yeah, if you get a Viper on, like, Bind, you just know they have 97 lineups. It's actually a free win. But
has that ever happened to you? Have you gotten a Viper on Bind?
For sure. Oh, it's very rare.
Never, ever seen a Viper on Bind in ranked.
It's very rare, but when it does happen, when there's a full moon out and you enter a ranked game late at night, you're on Bind, and your team plays a Viper. But then all of a sudden, pistol round, you see that lineup coming in, the wall goes down across A. All of a sudden, you're hitting the site, perfect utility, the coordination's there. It's free 13-0. They've been on Reddit all day. They've been browsing. They know the lineups. It has happened a few times to me. It's very rare, but when it does, it's a free win.
Yeah. I think I've had more Vipers carry my games than throw my games, weirdly.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I feel like it already was oppressive in ranked in certain places just because... Like, people don't know how to play against Viper, man. They're like, oh, I had a Viper, and they know what they're doing. Like, she's actually putting mollies down in front of us, and the smoke is one way. Like, they just have no clue what to do, and they just fall apart. They're like, we can't get through mid, man. What do I do? Like, that sort of thing over and over and over. So I think that this is going to push her pick rate up high in ranked, and just based on what I'm seeing.
I'm definitely going to play her.
I don't think that in like pro matches it's actually going to be. I mean, obviously people are going to pick her more for sure. But like in terms of like pushing through the wall and pushing through stuff like that, don't forget that the decay goes away, right? So people are still going to flash pop through stuff. If it's coordinated, doesn't matter if some of you guys or if all of you guys are 50 HP. If you're 3 people peeking one guy, right? So I think that isn't as scary when it comes to pro play. I just think in ranked. And the other thing too, you're scared about like how OP she might be and stuff, but I think that this is like actually pretty smart by Riot because I think the Viper has like a significant fan base that people don't realize in this game and other shooters like or other like the agents and the fan base and the creation around the agents. I think it's significant, and they're probably playing to that. Like nobody's doing fan art about Brimstone, but Viper.
We've entered the fan art discussion of the Valorant now. We finally hit it. Fan art and fan lore ready. Now it's ready to go.
That's
no one's asking Brimstone
make changes based off of stuff like that. Like for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure I could find someone. I'm sure someone wants to get stepped on by Brimstone.
Yeah, you're weird.
I didn't say
no.
Listen, we'll have our own tastes. What do
All
they do
right,
to
what was
Yoru?
the next one? Yoru, okay.
Well, here immediately, my least favorite line of text in any Valorant patch note. Flash duration increased. I don't like that already.
Yeah.
That makes I don't like that line of text particularly.
Yeah, I always felt like with Yoru, the flash as well just felt like they were throwing it in there so that he could be a bit more versatile. Like, it doesn't really fit with the rest of his kit. It doesn't fit thematically with him as an agent either. It's just, we're putting it in because you can get value out of it in every circumstance. With the rest of his kit, you really can't. So I think I don't know, man. The fix to Yoru was not making his flash better. The fix was making the rest of his kit better, in my opinion.
His flash was ass. Like, it was ass.
I mean,
let's be serious.
Yeah,
it's the easiest flash to turn, and it doesn't last like nearly as long as even the Sky Flash or Breach Flash. So, which makes sense because he's not an initiator. But
yeah,
sure.
I thought the flash was going to be really good going into it because I thought it would be easy to develop lineups with it where it would just pop flash people, but that has not proven to be the case. Or it's just that no one is.
Well, to be fair, no one has spent any time developing Yoru flash lineups because then it's like, okay, I flash now. Time to put footsteps out. Like there's not much There's not a lot of extra utility to work with him in that regard.
Oh, maybe it'll be good now.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but I think the key is the rest of the kit. What have they done to gate crash, huh? No longer refreshed on kills and instead replenished every 35 seconds. That's cool. I like the idea of making it time-based instead, because I felt like it was really hard to get value out of gate crash. It's just a shite ability. It's slow. You can't use it to be able to disengage properly like a dismiss or like a jet dash.
I'm sure Kurt could find some clips of you.
Okay.
Effectively.
But that's my brain being defective. That's not the ability being defective.
I think it's both, honestly.
It's a little bit of both. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, but mostly column A. Mostly the brain part. Yeah.
There just wasn't any I guess there's always this choice that you had with the gate crash. It's like, do I use it at the beginning of the round to make me go all the way back to the side that my team is on, or what do I do with this? Or do I try to use it like as the execute happens so I can find a new flank angle or something like that? This makes that choice it's not a choice anymore. You just get to put it down in the beginning of the round, and you get to use it for when the actual executes happen, which I find very, very cool. So now, like on defense, you can imagine a situation where you're just always at the site that they're hitting if they go for rushes, right? So you basically can't rush a team that's playing Yoru anymore because he can be on both sites. And on attack, you can feint with the footsteps. You could be like, oh, I'm pushing bathroom on bind, and then all of a sudden we're actually hitting B. Like, that is going to be very common. You can't account for where he is at the beginning of the round anymore.
Yeah, I think it makes him slightly more useful, but only slightly.
Yeah, like it's like reasonably. It's also a little bit harder to find because they changed like the stealth for it. Like you have to get a little bit closer to actually reveal it now.
Oh no!
We found it. We found a clip. Okay, let's take a look.
10 mans?
I mean,
okay, look at that flash.
Is this?
Look at that flash.
Oh, this is a good one. This is a tragic clip. Actually,
this is
so tragic.
I needed to pee. And
look at this. The second he gets up, turns around.
I mean,
that is so tragic.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
this isn't even a clip. This isn't even a clip of the failures of Yoru. This is just a failure of Josh's bladder here.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a failure of everything, isn't it? These are how my ranked games go. I think we lost this game. Don't know. Can't remember. Probably did though. We're 11-9 up, probably lost.
This is recent. Hold up. This is recent. There's an Astra. Why are we playing Yoru?
I was
pretty bad.
My chat loves to make me play Yoru. I have a channel point redeem where they can pick my agent, and if they pick it, they will always pick Yoru. Just to throw my games. Just to keep me locked in my little cage.
I don't think that's them throwing your games. I feel like that's you throwing your own games.
How am I throwing my own games?
Because you allow your chat to pick your hero.
Yeah, I'm an interactive streamer, okay? I love giving the people what they want.
That's what if there was the button that's like, I'm going to DC every time you claim these channel points. Like, essentially, at the end of the day, we're looking at equivalent things there. When we look at that clip and that potential happening.
Well, they need to buff Yoru so that he's not a throw pick, so that they can't, throw my games by just selecting what agent I'm playing.
So you don't think they have here? You don't think these are the changes required?
I don't know. What was the other stealth thing?
They just made his
Gatecrash?
ult faster. Like it's less orbs, less total points to get.
It's 6 now.
Yeah.
Which
And
I
you
mean,
can also reactivate Gatecrash while you're in it. So.
What?
Oh, that's pretty huge.
Yeah.
so you could go out of it and go back into it, right?
What?
So no. You
Or
can
not
use
go
the
out of it, go
ult,
back
and then
into
you
it, but
can
you can,
teleport to your gate crash while
you
you're
can-
in the ult.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
so you can
while you're in the ult.
yeah. So you can
Why
send
does it
the
say
thing.
reactivate?
I don't know.
That
I mean,
just
maybe
means-
it was. Maybe
That just means
it's
teleport to it, right?
Yes.
Because you press
Yes.
E the second time, you reactivate.
Yeah.
I suppose,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
That's
yeah,
what it is. Yeah.
Well, that is good because we were playing against a Yoru recently. I want to say like 3 days ago or something. We were playing a game against a Yoru. He was winning angels against everybody else in the game. Every time he used his ult, it was like he was deliberately trolling because he would use his ult and then he'd just get stuck. And then he's just trying to run away in his little blue form, and you're running after him because you know that he's going to be vulnerable as soon as he comes out of it. And he's just desperately trying to juke and dodge around boxes, and then he just comes out of it and you just shoot him in the head. I mean, it's just the ult was theoretically awesome, but in practice it was kind of shit, actually.
Yeah, I feel like his ult is still stuck. It's like Omen ult territory for me, where it's like great reconnaissance tool, terrible to do anything else. Essentially.
Yeah, but I mean, it definitely needs to go down to 6. I mean, it might need to go down to 5. Might be the first
I
5
know, right?
orb ult, but it definitely needed to go down to at least 6.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is one of those ults that you use and then you instantly, as soon as you're getting kills and you're getting points back, right? Like Phoenix, for example, not like Jett. So it'll feel like you're getting 4 ults a game if you're playing well, or 4 ults a half if you're playing well.
Yeah,
I think that's good.
It's so hard to I think to tell if this is going to be enough to make Yoru even into that like Viper territory I was describing earlier, where she is still a very good pick on certain maps if you want to play out a strategy.
Yoru's still a throw pick.
I mean, I don't even think he's there yet.
No, I mean, Yoru...
There's going to be more buffs coming.
Unless I've massively misunderstood something in that patch, Yoru will still be a throw pick, I think. Unless the flashes blind everybody, the gate crash is still going to be so hard to actually get value out of. And I suppose the like fact you can't see the gate crash as much is somewhat cool, and it lasts for 30 seconds. So if you shoot it, so there's only like 5 seconds of downtime without gate crash. Then
Yes.
I suppose that's all.
So that's all right, because then you honestly, one of the things about Yoru, I think going into it, the idea of him was that he would be constantly applying this pressure that there could be someone trying to exploit a flank, get behind you, get into the back line. In reality, that didn't really play out.
No.
So
I never feel pressured playing against Yoru because if he teleports, it goes,
yeah.
and so you just know that he's behind you.
But presumably now, I mean, they have, these are, at least with the gate crash for sure, steps in the direction of, with that being up all the time, theoretically, as a defender or attacker, you have to be worried about him going through a gate crash basically at any point in the round. So,
And you can't hear it as much, right? 'Cause
yeah, and you can't see it if you're...
Well, that's
Maybe.
revealed,
But-
not the sound cue, I believe. I think that's only just for this. It gets revealed
visible, yeah.
when it's closer. Yeah, it's not the sound cue. The sound cue is still like a fusion reactor burning. Like, so I don't know. It's
The
like
Yamato cannon.
Well, then maybe
Yeah,
still throw pick.
I don't know how that's going to work exactly.
I don't
feel like
know.
it makes it more
brings it
effective
closer to
lurker.
what the idea for him was
Yeah.
originally, right?
Yeah,
I
it's
think
a
that's
move in
all
the
it
right
does.
direction.
I did think at the beginning, I was like, oh, Yoru, like he's bad in ranks. He's bad when you don't have team play aspect. But I do think that there's ideas that teams can do to use them, especially now that you can potentially have four gate crashes in a round. The one question I have, and we'll see when the patch gets launched today, is whether or not that cooldown starts after you've used your teleport or like while it's somewhere out on the map. I don't think that's clear yet.
Oh,
But-
I see. Like, right. Yeah. I get what you mean. Like you would have to teleport to it before the cooldown began again, or something.
Yeah,
that
or
could change.
it dissipates or whatever. If
Yep.
that is the trigger for the cooldown,
Yep.
I don't know.
All right. What was the next thing in the patch, huh?
One we can all. Oh, it's Killjoy.
It's Killjoy.
You can redeploy Nano Swarm in the buy phase.
Okay, huge.
Only.
Good.
Next, this is the one we can all rejoice.
Yeah.
All of us together, all of those in the community. The Bucky's been nerfed.
We want to focus the Bucky more on its actual primary firing mode, left click. Bucky has a left click.
Yeah, evidently. It does.
I
They may
have
just
no
added
idea.
It is interesting, but if you look at that go all the way, focus your eyes on the very last row of text. The amount of pellets in a right click from 15, 5.
Yeah, I mean they've
So-
just fucking murdered it.
You can't right click anymore.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's just terrible.
they say you just need some reliable chip damage. I mean,
That's
listen, if you're going for reliable chip damage, you're getting
just use the
beamed by a
classic.
rifle.
Yeah, just use. I mean,
you're dead.
that's
so
I don't like the way that they've just murdered the Bucky here, though.
I'm
I might
okay
be
with
in
them
the-
murdering the right click.
I'm
I'm fine with it. Let's get rid of
here's-
it. Like, let's
I'm gonna-
delete the Bucky.
I'm gonna make the Overwatch analogy. Roadhog's right click,
Steal
which
my
is
analogy?
yeah, Roadhog's
I'm
right click, which
furious.
is pretty similar to the how the Bucky works. Roadhog feels so good because you have to land it perfectly to be able to do damage, but it
Yeah.
still does a shit ton of damage if you land it properly. But when you fire the like alternate fire, the pellet spreads out massively, and so you have to be in that perfect sweet spot. Otherwise,
like if you haven't played Overwatch or Roadhog, it has to be exact.
I think it has to be
It's-
within like 10 centimeters.
Yeah, it has to be the absolute perfect sweet spot range. And
I
it's
think that would have been a good
really
change.
satisfying when you do get a kill with it because it is so difficult to pull off.
I mean, why would you even buy Bucky now is my question, right? Because the thing is, I actually agree in that the right click served a purpose because it differentiated the Bucky from like the Judge. Like, why, if you're going to pick a shotgun, why the hell would you pick Bucky now versus just getting a different pistol or like a Frenzy or a Judge, you know? Like, there's no reason to pick Bucky anymore other than the cost. That's it. But like, you could probably get stuff that's more cost effective.
Yeah, I actually think that I liked the Roadhog thing when we were talking about that. I actually like that. That if you can get kills with the right click, but it has to be the absolute perfect sweet spot range to be able to pull it off. Otherwise, you're doing negative damage with a spread.
So what do you guys want? You're basically asking for a Zeus from CS:GO, as like.
Yeah, but not well. The Zeus is that you have to be really close to them, right?
Yeah.
What we're saying is that the Bucky's effective range on the right click used to be somewhere between 8 and 9 meters. I think was like the distance you had to be away from somebody. What we're saying is make it so that the right click distance is 9 meters exactly, say, or something like that. And if you're 0.5 meters too far or too close, it essentially does like 0 damage because the right click expands so much. I think that would have been a better way of balancing it rather than just, we will murder this gun now. People are annoyed and so we will murder it. I mean, why would you ever use the right click on this gun anymore? It does
there's
5 pellets.
Yeah,
You might as well sniff on them.
There's no reason to ever right click.
They're going to take more damage if you type something offensive in the
know.
chat.
I never thought I would be asking for the removal of the pump shotgun in the game, but like, come on, man, this does not belong. I mean, it doesn't. What is the purpose of shot like the shotgun meta in this game? Like, what makes it interesting or fun? Anything, like even the Judge, right? Even
I mean,
the
pretty much
Shorty to some
just
extent.
raise det packs. And
Yeah, and that stuff
sometimes
is like-
Jett dashing in off of like an aggressive smoke or flash.
We could already shoot our ghosts and phantoms like midair and headshots like that. That's already there no matter what. Like, I don't know. I just feel like the shotguns has never been fun in this game or any TAC FPS that I've
So you
ever
can't get controller
played.
only raise players without the Judge or the Bucky.
Thank
So
you.
just think
Thank
about
you.
that. You're gonna
Dasner,
lose a big
he's
part
gone.
of the experience.
Yeah, Dasner is gone. Well, actually, there's still the Judge, so maybe I'm not.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm
the
too
Judge is
early on this celebration and hallelujah.
bonkers
But
as
come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, it did. No, it definitely needed to get nerfed, and I'm glad that it got nerfed. But I think it.
And we get to Steel's never buying a Bucky anymore. Like thank the Lord, please. We don't get to see that again. Like, it's over. Thank you. Thank you.
Are people going to move to the Marshal now? What's the next? Is everyone just using
More
the Sheriff at
interesting
all
than the
times?
Bucky, and that's a sniper.
I mean, yeah, it might just go back to the Sheriff.
Yeah. I mean, the
think
Sheriff
it
just
might
seems
be
like the
Sheriff
default pick.
season.
Yeah.
I'm wondering when they're going to change the op now. That's the next gun on my list. I feel that needs to be looked at is the op, because that's like it feels very, very weak right now to op currently. And like there's so many people saying like, yeah, like, you know, there's not much to do against the Smeeg meta at times because op is so prohibitively expensive and like easy to deal with currently. So I'm wondering when they're going to touch the op, if they're going to touch the op at all, ever. If we're ever going to have like the op come back, really.
Got to combine it with a Jett nerf, I think. But if you nerf Jett, the Jett dash, I do think that it would be a better idea to buff the op at least a little bit. It is kind of ridiculous that there's only one viable agent in the game that you want to give an op to repeatedly. Like that doesn't make sense. That's a bad state for the game to be in my opinion. I think we're going to look back at this time in the game, and the biggest thing we're going to think about is like, wow, why could only Jett be the op? That's
I see you haven't seen Steel with the Killjoy op, huh? The Killjoy op is a very viable meta.
Yeah, and Mummy does it on Omen and stuff. There are exceptions, but generally speaking, it's just so much more effective to have your Jett do it, which is I don't think that's a great position for the game to be in.
I think it's really funny though that like it's not the fact that the op is weak on other characters, it's just that it's really strong on Jett, right? That's kind of how this discussion has gone. So really, it's because you could adjust your position, you can change things like that, and that this game really favors that. But it's not because there's no movement on other characters that the op is bad. It's just that the op is bad in general, outside of when you don't have that extra movement, right? That's been the consensus.
Yeah, I think though that the op generally is not. I don't know. They've nerfed the op significantly in terms of its like price point and stuff like that.
Yeah, considering the price of it,
it's prohibitive
it's a very high price.
Yeah, it's prohibitive to buy unless you can get mega value out of it by playing it on.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. I'd like to see them like add a scope sound, reduce the price a little bit, nerf Jett dash. I think the three combined together would open it up to other agents a little bit more, rather than people feeling like, well, I'm not going to spend that amount of money if I don't have a Jett to be able to play it.
We're just going to start seeing Yoru oppers now. As soon as
you can
as soon as they do that.
I think there's always been something there. It just hasn't been tested. It hasn't been tested properly. But they should up a little.
The final part of the patch was HRTF, right? And that is something that I think will fly under the radar for a lot of people, but it's probably the most important part of this entire patch. Previously, this game did not distinguish between someone being 45 degrees to your front right and 45 degrees behind you to the right. Like, there was no way to distinguish between the two of those things. And so the audio sounded, I mean, it was confusing. It was really confusing, the audio in this game. HRTF was added to CSGO, I don't know, 2014, something like that. I can't exactly remember what year it was, but it made such a huge difference to that game's audio. I mean, you'll be able to look up, if you're interested in like getting an idea of what that is. Oh, it actually has a video right here that explains it as well. That gives like audio comparisons. But yeah, it's just a great thing for the game.
This is the single like biggest change that I've been hoping for. I read the patch notes at like 1 a.m. I read through Viper stuff. I was like, oh dang. And then I come down to HRTF and I completely forgot that there's anything else in this patch because this is so good. I think people have to be careful though. When they first load up the game, they're gonna hear it, and this is what happened in CS. Like all my teammates were like, "This sucks, man. This is terrible," because they're just not used to it. It definitely is going to feel a lot different, and you're gonna think that it's not good. But just get used to it. Play like a day, and then all of a sudden you'll be like, "Wow, I can actually hear in Valorant now." Because we could not hear before, like in comparison to others. The crazy thing though is that this technology has been out. Like this was used in like all the way back in gold source games like 1.6 and TFC and stuff like that. Like HRTF is the real deal, and it's obviously been improved. So we'll get to feel how it is. I hope it's good. I hope it's really good.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this too. The audio in the game has made me mauled so many times in the past. I've been waiting for this change genuinely since beta. Actually, I think I've said on the show many times that they really need to improve the audio, and there's some kind of fix. So I'm by this out.
Well, they're also going to be using this patch in challenges, apparently, is what they've been saying.
Yeah.
So HRTF, the Viper buffs, the Yoru buffs, the slight change to Killjoy are all going to be live in the challenges games, which are happening today? literally today. So
for Europe, yeah.
that's a 1-day turnaround. I don't know whether. Do you think that's going to make a massive difference to teams?
I don't think.
Well,
so.
EU's not playing on it, right? It's just NA because EU started yesterday.
Yeah,
it has to be just NA. NA starts today, right?
Yeah, I
and
really
no,
don't
NA
know.
starts tomorrow.
Oh, so
no,
tomorrow.
NA starts.
Okay.
Yeah, NA starts on the 1st, which is tomorrow. So it's
2 days.
I saw people complaining about it because they're like, "Wow, they were on one patch for all this time, and now we have a 1-day turnaround." But personally, especially for NA, I don't think any of this changes realistically very much, other than like Bucky. I'd say Bucky maybe, and like the HRTF obviously, but that's about it. I don't think the agent changes are going to influence NA too much unless teams have been unless they got like insider trading about the Viper buff and have been secretly practicing it.
Some teams have been playing Viper, right? Compared to others. And they get an advantage.
But it's still, I would still say it's definitely lower in NA, I believe, than it is in like other, especially like EU.
I mean, who plays it in NA? I guess Anbox
Xset
played some
on Split.
Xset. Yeah.
I'm guessing that BBG with the trial.
Yeah, BBG's done it
sometimes.
sometimes, and
right.
I don't know. Can I think of even a
T1?
single top team? Okay, T1. I guess
T1 playing it on Icebox.
TSM had that one time when they tried playing Hazed on it.
Not going to be happening anymore.
No. Anyway,
I can't see it affecting.
Anyway, the thing that we wanted to go over last week that we never got around to because we had this enormous episode was talking a bit about the upcoming challenges, because we've just concluded stage 1. By the way, this whole system of notation, stage 2, challenges 1, etc., it's so confusing. It's like it's challenges 1, but it's 4 masters 2. So I don't know how people are going to naturally refer to that. We've called it stage 2 challenges 1 because I think that's what VLR is using. I don't know whether Riot's using that as well, but anyway.
That's what they're using. Yeah.
Oh, is that what they're using? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the format is very different though, because we've got a LAN on the horizon that is the actual Masters event. The entire format has now shifted to what it will be for the future. What that essentially means is if you're a little Timmy at home that's been watching VCT and you're like, format's confusing, don't worry, it is fucking confusing. But ignore everything that you saw for Masters 1, basically, because the format is now different. Like what was called Masters is now the Challengers Finals, and true Masters is where they go and all play together in the big LAN event. But what that means is that the formats have changed significantly too, from like the perspective of how many teams get in from each region. So I wanted to talk a bit about EMEA, which is what? Europe, Middle East, and Africa, I guess? Is it North Africa? Is that what EMEA is?
I don't know what it stands
My
for.
guess would be yes, but
Europe, the
honestly,
Middle
don't
East,
know.
and Africa.
Okay.
It probably would be,
Fine.
yeah.
Don't know if there's any actual African teams that have been playing. I haven't seen them. Actually, I think there might be. Anyway, whatever. EMEA's format, though, is really strange this time around because there are 8 spots in the Challengers final, right? And the 2 best teams go to Masters. Of those 8 teams, 2 of them are going to be from the Turkish side, and 3 of them are going to be from the Turkish side, and 1 of them is going to be from CIS. So you have 4 teams from EU, 3 teams from Turkey, and 1 team from CIS, I believe is the way that it ends up playing out.
But they all play through the Challenger qualifiers separately.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
So your top 3 teams from Turkey are going to be into Challengers Finals. Your top 1 team from CIS is going to be through to Challengers Finals. And your top 4 from Europe are as well.
Right.
That is a very strange situation for Europe to be in, because I assume that they've weighted it so heavily because the Turkish viewership is massive. Like the Turkish viewership is literally bigger than the European one, isn't it?
Double the European
Yeah, I mean,
viewership.
that's
it's
insane.
bigger than an A often. So
yeah, it can be. Yeah, I mean, up until the enormous events.
no, obviously not talking about co-streams and that. Like co-streams definitely put an A over, but like when we're talking about official streams.
Sure.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that? About the EU side of it in terms of how many teams go through?
I think this is a problem only because we have online Challengers Finals, and I think that's going to cause more problems than anything else, because there are significant ping differences between Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Turkey, Middle East, all these different places. I feel like there are significant challenges there. And because of that, you don't feel like you want to do like this regional challengers or where it's all everybody combined qualifying for one thing. That's why you don't want to do that. But then you have to have the challengers final because otherwise it's really awkward sending people to Iceland. I think it's a really tough problem, to be honest. And I think the fairness is like okay for now. It really sucks that there's one CIS team.
Yeah, that was going to be my concern. Is like it seems odd to me that CIS would only get one team. That's the only thing I would say. Like I get Turkey's huge, but I feel like it would be a little bit more fair to have two CIS teams in there. But
do you think it's reasonable to allocate spots based on the popularity of the region, or at this point in the game when we don't exactly know which region? Well, I mean, the thing with Europe is that actually the CIS teams and Turkish teams have played against European teams before in the past too, and it seems like Europe is significantly better. And then the CIS, like the best team in CIS, I don't know, like best team in CIS in Turkey would probably be towards the bottom of the top 10, something like that. But I mean, how do you guys feel about allocating spots based on the popularity versus the skill of the region? I guess
I think they kind of have to right now, but can be allocated differently. I think that this is just this. I mean, these are just the circumstances of attempting to host the first LAN ahead of schedule in the COVID world. I mean, it kind of just is what it has to be at this point. And for all of the complaints that will be had, there's not really great options in any direction right now. So I think it just kind of, it is what it has to be. You got to deal with it. Things will be more ironed out and sound in the future. But for now, this is just what it is.
Also, being more equitable doesn't necessarily make your scene grow initially as well. Like there are different like motives to hosting versus like these teams are really good, this region's really good versus this is very popular, right? Like if I'm an early TO or Riot currently, when I'm heading into the actual Masters event, I'm thinking about what is going to get the most eyes on my game, And like, sure, it could be theoretically a little bit more fair initially to have like a more even distribution of teams. But if one region is going to increase your view count by like 30% by having more people potentially involved, then that's like a kind of a no-brainer at this point in the game. So it's a very tough discussion to be had as like a TO and as someone wanting to build a scene, because it's just like there are short-term and long-term goals that you have to balance.
Well, let me ask you guys this. What would be the equitable way to do it?
Well, I think
different TOs have done it wildly different in many different scenes.
I think most people would have expected that CIS would get 2 and Turkey would get 2. I think that's the like default position.
Well, no, I don't even like mean like the specific numbers. I'm just saying like what do you base it off of in a fair circumstance?
Right. I think going forwards into the future, one way that you could do it is by looking at the results of like Challengers Finals this time around and seeing which region ended up doing best overall and trying to allocate like a larger portion to those regions to try and get them proportional invites based on the strength that they represented last time around. And you could even update that for every Masters. Like you don't.
So what are we like just VOD reviewing? Like
the placement that they got. So like say in Challengers Finals you have all of the top 4 teams end up being European, and then the CIS team beats all 3 of the Turkish teams. At that point, I think you could say, right, well, CIS as a region probably is a little stronger than Turkey right now because the CIS team did better than all 3 of the Turkish teams. Yeah. Let's give them another spot and take one away from Turkey. Something like that, I think, would be reasonable once you know the results of one of the Challengers Finals.
That's the problem. We just don't have any. I mean, and I know people, like you were saying, the Turkish teams and CIS teams and European teams did play against each other, but that was pre-2021. Yeah, that was pre-Challengers Stage 1, Masters Stage 1, where everything was separate. So as of right now, I'm assuming the way they're viewing this, as well as what you're getting at, is that they don't actually have that data available now. Yeah. This Stage 2 is where that data will become available. And then for the future, they'll be able to give spots more potentially based on the actual skill level and the results of the teams at that point. But this one kind of has to be the test things out one. So yeah, might as well go off what will make the tournament the best for eyes.
Sure.
Because short term, that is a very valuable thing for them to go for, which is boosting viewership.
Oh, definitely.
Because
go on.
That's the marketing aspect for them right now, right? It's like, let's try to get as many people excited about Valorant esports as possible. In the future, we'll start converting that to let's try to get as many people playing Valorant esports as possible. But for now, like as this beginning stages, I honestly think it's not bad at all. I think it's probably pretty smart for them and good for the health of the scene. Maybe not, the best for certain teams and certain players in certain regions, but we have to make sacrifices somewhere. And hopefully in the future, we can make it really equitable.
And again, these are the sacrifices to even have this event in the first place. Remember that. This event was not supposed to happen, and it is.
Sure.
And there are sacrifices to be made within that. Which are, how many teams from each region? Don't exactly know. Also, tougher when you can't have, they are only having 10 teams. Also not the plan. Another sacrifice of having an event already. All a sacrifice to hopefully then have a highly viewed, excellent event where we get close to what the top 10 teams at the time are. And if one of the teams maybe isn't a top 10 team and a team misses out, that's unfortunate, but they'll have another chance in the future when things are more normalized and it's easier to put on sound events. So.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, let's, as part of our Stage 2 Challenges 1 preview, let's take a look at some of the brackets. I don't know which one Kurt can find first, but like North America would be a good place to start, I think, and pick out some of the previews of games that are going to be cool.
Well, the top part is just cool right away.
Yeah, I mean, let's start here immediately because I wanted to talk about this team Sonics anyway. And if you see the way that Sentinels are set up, they're going to play this team Sonics in the round of 32, assuming that they beat Cloud9 White. But even the game Sonics versus Cloud9 White could be interesting. And if you guys are asking, well, who are Sonics? That is the EXO team that moved from Australia and have just arrived in North America. So this you can see them playing. I don't even know how VLR has got an NA rank for them because they must have just taken the ELO from.
That's got to be the OC one. They have no official matches yet on NA.
Yeah, I mean, they're currently ranked 9 in North America without playing a single match in North America. So it's definitely just the oceanic ranking as they've been paddleboarding their way across the Pacific here.
Yeah. So this team, this team is, I think they were the best team in Australia. Yeah. It was them and Team Launch, I think. Were the two best? I don't know. I haven't been following the oceanic scene.
Yeah, but I just know that they were the best.
They've got a player called Bob.
Yeah,
that's pretty fun.
he's pretty good too.
Yeah, I've seen some players playing in North American ranked recently as well, like Crunchy, who plays Omen for them too, is somebody that I know a bunch of other players have been enjoying watching and playing with. So. Yeah, there we go.
Bob.
There's Bob, the sofa.
Bob.
But this will be really cool. This is the first time I think we've seen any interregional play in Valorant, right?
Yeah. It is very excining. It is definitely
outside
very
of the EU Turkish stuff. I think for sure that this is the first time, which maybe a little bit of a bummer that's coming from OCE, but I'm still hyped as hell. I'm so hyped that we potentially have this. And hopefully it gets streamed too, because I know that's a slight concern.
We don't know if it's going to be streamed either. It's arguably a more important interregional match too, simply because everyone knows Turkey generally is relatively okay on the international stage across the esports it participates in. It can be pretty good, but OC has always been the redheaded stepchild of esports, I think, in a lot of ways. And it's just they're just stuck on their island. They have poo-poo tier internet. They have to pay $80 in digital tax for games for some reason. So they've always been lagging a step behind, I think, even though it's a really dedicated community. So it's good. It would be really cool if the game could be streamed and if Sonics puts up a great performance, but also it would totally meet expectations if Sonics comes over and gets absolutely curb stomped into the ground by Sentinels.
Yeah,
Simply because that happens to OC sometimes.
And it's also Sentinels, right? Like they've been unlucky in some sense because they are literally unrated. Like they don't have a seed coming into this tournament because even though they're the best team from OCE, they haven't done anything in North America, so they haven't been seeded highly at all. Which means that they are in the portion of the bracket with the best team in NA. That's really unlucky. Like even if they're a good team, you would expect 100% of the time them to lose to Sentinels. I mean, it would be mind-blowing if they won against Sentinels. That would change everything I know about Valorant.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's very unlikely. The problem is, it would be cool if they're like, I don't know, even like 10th best in NA. I think that would be cool.
Yeah.
But then that puts them in the tier of like, I don't know, T1.
Yeah, T1,
someone like
Cloud9.
that.
Those kind of teams.
Who you also expect to just get kind of rolled over by Sentinels. So if they can even keep it relatively close, I think that'll be pretty cool. And it might even be it might be a pretty sick game with them against C9 White as well, honestly.
Yeah.
I would hope that these games get streamed because I know in the last Challenger, like the Stage 1 Challenger 3, Nerd Street just had 1 million streams going of every single game.
Yeah, they're no casters. But
no casters, just observe. Oh, actually, listen, I mean, please do that again. Because I'd like to watch the C9 White game as well.
Yeah, compared to all the games in Europe that are not going to be streamed as well. There was like a huge list of games. It's like Vitality, OG, just so many teams.
And they started like round of 5-12 too, or something in EU as well.
It's
There's like so many possibilities over there.
It is.
We're getting new comps and not even seeing them. I'm excited for Sonics, specifically because I think that this, to be honest, has like implications for OCE down the line. I think seeing a team do very well against global competition will help OCE develop other teams, other players, and stuff like that. One confusing thing that I'm not quite sure how it's working, and again, this is like, what the hell's the format? OCE is like involved in the NA circuit, right? So do they have any slots going to Challenger Finals, or I'm pretty sure they don't, but like, how does that all work? Because they're definitely like, remember that the talent roster or the talent region lock thing?
Yeah,
it's like OCE is part of the NA circuit, but there's actually no OCE tournaments. So I guess they're not part of it.
Honestly,
I have not a clue. I don't think so.
I don't know. But let's continue moving down the bracket for NA, because let's see if there's some other decent games, because that top half of the bracket definitely people are going to be paying attention to. Then who have we got moving further down?
Next part, like BBG versus Beast Coast.
BBG Beast Coast. Yeah, BBG Beast Coast maybe would be
on the way.
Beast Coast is pretty interesting too, because they got Kohler and Fraud is the new head coach with this team. So Beast Coast is relatively interesting. Yeah, a very ethical team.
At the end of the day,
it's
whoever's
Sentinels on that side of the bracket.
They're just playing the Sentinels. So
bye.
Bye. Have fun though. You made it to the round of 16. Congratulations. You almost did it. But you got Sentinels in your bracket.
What else have we got here? We've got XSEC going to be playing against NRG for the qualification spot, maybe. NRG going to have to go up against Space Station probably at some point too. But yeah, that could be a cool game. I'm excited to see NRG.
NRG XSEC, that's good.
I think Renegades version 1 could be. It's kind of further down, but Renegades version 1. 2.
Hold on.
That's right. Yeah, FaZe is down there. And the new Rise team. The new Rise team is in this as well. And they might play Immortals if they make it through. Rise could play Immortals, and Rise now has Shanks and Calypso. Yeah. So.
Ooh, TSM. We get to see them again. It feels like we haven't seen them in forever.
Yeah. It really does feel like we haven't seen them in forever. Who are they playing against theoretically? They could. They'll play against probably Immortals for qualification.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
that's.
I don't think they're making this one.
That's a tough game, but yeah. Who knows? TSM, I'm rooting for them. I want them to come back to the top of the scene. They've got some sick players.
Other than that, I think everything else is like seeded relatively well.
Cloud9 Gen.G is going to be a qualification game probably.
Yeah.
That could be pretty good.
Yeah, Cloud9 off the back of winning that Nerd Street qualifier.
Oh, and 100 Thieves T1. That feels like it always happens, man. This 100 Thieves T1. Oh, and Dignitas is in this side of the bracket as well. Unless they lose to Rice Ball Gang 13-0, which could maybe. That could happen.
It's a best of 3. It's the best of 3. We're chilling.
Okay.
Dignitas
No, I don't think that team will
Lost
be
in the
facing
sauce, man.
100 Thieves. I don't think Dignitas will be.
No, it seems unlikely, doesn't it? Well, there were a bunch of roster changes as well within North America for some of the teams that we've already mentioned. So I think we should probably crack on with some of those, to be honest. There was, returning to TSM, I want to talk about this one first, because we saw that TSM are going to be playing and like trying to battle their way through the bracket. Who do they play against?
Immortals.
Sorry, Immortals?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and now they've signed up with Brax. I didn't exactly know how to I don't know whether Brax is trialing or whether he's already joined or what, but he is signed up with them, and Hayes has not been scrimming with them recently as well, apparently. So it looks like the way forward is with Brax. What do you guys think about this role? People are so this move, sorry. People are so excited for Brax to be at the top of the scene, but I don't know. He's never really been there so far.
Speculation is what? Speculation is that they are going to go through VCT with a 6-man roster, and that the 6-man is Brax, and it's mostly a trial, right?
Right.
For whether he can be on this fifth or the actual fifth. Wait, Hayes is actually here. Cool.
Yeah, Hayes is still on the roster, but it's just going to be a 6-man. It's the classic: are we going to replace someone or are we not?
I think that Brax fits well in this team. I'm not gonna lie. Like even if the rumors about it not being a full-time 6-man roster type deal, like even if that was not the case and it was really them trying to pursue a 6-man roster, I think Brax is perfect for this team. Why? Because they've always struggled to find a sentinel. Always. It's always been Hayes kind of relegated the role, but they never really tried to play that. That's why they started playing triple duelists. And then during challenges 2, they're like, yeah, we still don't really want to play a sentinel. Let's try to play double smokes, double controller, maybe throw in some double initiation like we used to as well. You had Sabros on Sky. It was all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And Brax as a 6-man playing a sentinel, swapping out with Hayes when they want a sentinel on certain maps actually makes a lot of sense. Now, that's not at all what's been rumored to be happening. So I don't know. I don't know how this is going to work at all, to be honest.
Wait. What's the rumor that's been happening?
The rumor is that it's a trial, right? The typical we're gonna figure this out and cut somebody at the end of it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I thought you meant as to like what.
Sorry, I just went
something further about what he'd be playing or something. But
I don't know where the hell I'm going.
But that is a really interesting question. What is Brax even going to be playing? Because towards the end of his time, when he was playing for T1, he wasn't on Sentinel. He was playing Jett, and I thought there was some internal thing where he didn't want to keep playing Sentinel for the team. But presumably for TSM, he's going to, because no one else would.
I mean, no one else.
You're not going to put Wardell on Sentinel.
I mean,
so that's just not going to happen.
Cool, though. The Opping Killjoy. Opping Killjoy.
It's the new flavor.
I mean, no, Ball is definitely right. He does fit the team in that is the role that they've needed. I just can't get excited about this. I just can't. And
especially since I don't think Hayes was playing poorly either.
No, Hayes was fine, though people have definitely recency biased him into being this because of the very last time we saw him, he was playing really well. So you're right, but also crazy recency bias for Hayes at the moment that I'm seeing. But he is good. I just can't get excited about Brax joining this team. My hope, though, is that it's because he's going to be, maybe he'll be a Crashies or Food story where he just wasn't working in T1. It's more to do with the T1 system and their style at the time and how they were playing than it actually was his play.
Yeah.
And that being in a different team, he'll be able to succeed. Is that team the one who hasn't been able to find an identity for months and months and months and has seemed kind of lost? They try something new every... I don't know. I don't know if that's the spot for him. Yeah. Also, just Brax as an individual player, I mean, he's been fine. Is this the move that will take TSM over the top and back into the top 2, top 3? I just don't... I think that there's just more hype behind Brax than is warranted in Valorant at this point. I mean, every roster move, anytime a team drops a player... Is it Brax and AZK? I mean, I think he's just been rated so highly from that early era of the game, and it has carried over for so long. And during the majority of the T1 run, he was good. He was fine. But
I mean, there were portions where he wasn't even that good. But
yeah, definitely. There was an era on Cypher where he was definitely just
quite poor.
I mean, he was he was just so slow, and
he got a lot better during his time at T1. And I think Brax doesn't strike me as the player that's going to help TSM fix their identity. And that, I think, is the biggest problem with TSM. And so, even if Brax fits on the team nicely, I think they still have this problem of finding a style that works for them. And that's going to be I suppose it's easier when you have a Sentinel, because you don't have to try and find a weird style that works. You can play something more default. But I think that even if Brax is a good fit for the team, TSM's issues weren't just that they didn't have a Sentinel player. They didn't have a system. They didn't have an identity. They know what they wanted to do. They've been throwing around the different IGL roles. They don't, I don't know. They don't know how they want to play the game right now.
You guys are like this identity problem that TSM has had. I've always kind of been thinking of it more as like a, not necessarily motivation, but like a momentum and like how they gel together, their chemistry and whatnot. I feel like that for Wardell and Sabrosa, to me, have always been super momentum based, right? If they get down in a rut, they're probably going to stay there, right? They might have a round that'll bring them out, but without somebody to get them out and playing the best of the best that they can be, if they're not, TSM's not going to do well. To me, Brax is another one of those players who's very similar, right? He's somebody who, if he's popping, he's popping. And if his team is definitely, hyped around him, he's going to go off. That's always been kind of the way that Brax is. He's very quiet, right? Reserved. And I feel like the same thing for Wardell and Sabrosa. Meanwhile, Hazed is on the other side. I think this guy is the guy that's hyping you guys up, the guy that is keeping you guys involved and motivated and playing at the top of the level. Maybe not all the time. That's just the feeling I got from TSM. And without fixing that, I don't really see. That's why I'm like, the Sentinel stuff is all in the background, whatever. That's why Brax to me doesn't necessarily fix what I hope that TSM fixed before this.
I mean, that kind of sounds to me as well like you're sort of getting at their, I don't want to say in-game leading issues, but rather the lack of a natural IGL, because it has swapped around so many times for the team, and it's kind of stuck with Cutler, I think, a bit by default for a while now, because he's just, based on how the team operates in-game, he is the best man for the job in his role. But not having, someone who is just the natural leader of the team, who is going to, enter the team and want to do that, both sort of what you're getting at, like the mentality as well as also strategy.
They need a hype man. That's all they need. Because if you get Wardell and Sabrosa starting to frag out and get on fire, man, these guys will not stop. And they will just kill teams without, it doesn't even matter what they're playing, man. Like they'll just kill teams. They'll just run over them.
Yeah, they do have a lot of talent, like crystallized at the top of that team. Like Drone as well is very talented, but
also a quiet dude.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether Brax is going to be playing Sentinel for them as well. I could see a world in which Cutler moved to Sentinel to play like full-time IGL Cypher kind of thing, and they tried to, I don't know, maybe put Drone back on the Sova like he had been doing previously, way back, and have Brax try and play like secondary duelist behind Wardell. I think that could be something that works for them. Obviously, Sabrosa plays Omen in basically every situation that I can see. I think that could be a possibility for them. I need to just see this team play. Like, I don't really have faith in them, but I do want them to succeed, because I think the NA scene is worse for not having TSM at the top. The talent that somebody, especially like Wardell, has is outrageous. Still, in my opinion, like a top 3 Jett within North America, even though his team was, I don't even know, where were they? Maybe 15th or something recently when it came to their performance in previous Challengers finals and Masters.
So that's about right. Yeah.
They still have extreme quality on that roster.
Not to mention personality, man. We need them back there.
Sure.
We need Wardell doing interviews, bro. Like,
yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
All right. Well, another team that we mentioned was NRG, and NRG, they have recently changed out Shanks and they've added in Tex as well. And this was something that a lot of people were excited about. I think Wyatt just mentioned, Avast just mentioned that Shanks has gone over to Rise with Calypso too. What are you thinking about this move? NRG were actually doing really well recently.
Yeah, I mean, NRG have stepped up massively in honestly, to some extent, in all regards of the game. Individually, you saw Daps was playing way better, and it took him a bit to get into the swing of things. But,
the mechanical god.
But he was looking like the mechanical god when we saw him last time. He was looking good. But the team is just synergized so much more effectively. The utility actually has a purpose. The players are actually setting each other up constantly and efficiently. Psalm was way better on Omen than he was on Duelist. It felt that he was a lot more comfortable in that role, and I think that some of his worst tendencies on Duelist to sort of overextend himself had faded away naturally by just being in that role, and you just got to see him shine as an excellent aimer, and he was also good with the utility as well on an individual level. I was and still am excited about this NRG roster. I think that in their last showing, if you are going to be critical of anyone on the team individually, it would have been Shanks. There were a lot of rounds that actually did literally come down to him needing to find one kill or hit one shot and couldn't. And that's not to say he wasn't doing a good job, because he had good maps as well, and he had good moments, but he wasn't showing up for them in very high pressure key situations.
What is that clip?
Tex is nasty, bro.
Ridiculous.
What is that?
Yeah. But yeah, I think Shanks just he wasn't consistent enough for them at that level. And I think in order for him to succeed at that level, he just needs to find that consistency. So instead, they've gone in the route of picking up Tex, who had made a name for himself over the past couple months when he started playing with Equinox, and was just, there were like 2 tournaments in a row where he top fragged. I mean, essentially he top fragged literally every single map in 2 Nerd Street tournaments, I think, in a row for Equinox. He was just pounding every single game. He doesn't actually play Jett.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. What does this team do for Jett moving forward? Because I don't think Android has played a lot of Jett ever, right?
Not as far as
so that's like the one thing that's really interesting to me about this team, is that there is no Jett player currently that has played a lot of Jett at all
Psalm
for NRG.
And I would hope that they don't plan on putting him back on Jett, because I think the roles that they had were really good. So I would hope that that is not the route they're going to be taking.
Well, if I remember correctly, wasn't NRG the team that was just like Jett dashing and planting bomb and smoke every round? So it's kind of like a useless role anyways. Shanks every round on Haven, he was just dashing into the Stepbro box. On Icebox, he was just dashing into Nest. And who was it that tweeted? I think it was maybe Brax or somebody tweeted like, what is the point of using Jett this way? And it's also one of your best players too. So maybe they're just like, Jett's not that good overall at this point.
Feels like that is an interesting takeaway, if that is what they have taken away from that situation. So that's my only concern. That's honestly my only concern, because I agree with everything Wyatt said. I think Tex is an overall probably going to be more consistent candidate for them, and he's already fills pretty much all the same agents except for Jett. So it's really just what is this team identity moving forward if they have put like a piece of duct tape over the Jett agent in the agent select screen? Like, what is this team's identity moving forward exactly?
Yeah, I think that they have players that are still in the process of development as well. They have a lot of players that I feel are still like growing into what they can be. Somebody like Tex maybe hasn't shown everything that he can play so far. The skill set that he's demonstrated is not specific to any one agent, I don't think. So
I mean, before he was playing Duelist, he was playing like Sova and something else for previous teams. So I mean, he's definitely played a wide range of agents. Yeah, I mean, just good pickup, good player. Only thing that is the question mark is him and Android on Duelist have the same agent pool. And also, I mean, maybe if they do run the Psalm on Jett, I mean, to be fair to him as well, when he was playing Jett, that was when he had just switched over, and it was the first showings from NRG. So he certainly could have improved on that role a lot since. So maybe they do throw him on Jett, and he's just an overall better player now at Valorant the game, and he'll be able to fill it. So that's possible as well. But
yeah, well, we'll see. I'm excited about this team, to be honest, because I've been really enjoying watching Tex and was disappointed when Equinox died. But you just knew that Tex was going somewhere because he had that level of talent. So yeah, this is really cool. Who did NRG match up against in the bracket? Come on, remind me. Oh,
That's
a good game.
Yeah, that should be a really good game.
But one reminder about NRG, they were the only team to take a map off of FaZe other than Sentinels in that entire whole FaZe Schmegan type
That's
thing.
True.
Like NRG outside of Sentinels.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Another team within North America that has made changes is Dignitas. And
someone needs to help Dignitas.
Yeah.
They need help.
They need Jesus.
No, they need a talent scout. They need help. They have made so many moves at this point. It never ends, and it's always, I don't know. It's like they get a hit and a miss, and then I don't know what. They made another move today, by the way. I think.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure they got rid of Ryan.
Oh, really?
And they got someone else.
What?
They got rid of Ryan already today.
I think I saw that.
Here, I'm gonna check.
Maybe I had a fever dream before I woke up. I was just dreaming about Dignitas, but I'm pretty sure that happened.
I was confused when they added Rara and Ryan because I thought Rara looked fantastic, but Ryan looked so lumpy when I was watching.
This is not. I mean, Dignitas.
I don't see it on their Twitter, by the way. I don't see any moves.
Or I saw it. I don't know. It was like a rumor, or I just for some reason had this dream that they were getting rid of Ryan in my sleep. But I swear that I saw it somewhere. Maybe you can find it, Kurt. I don't know if it was on Reddit or Twitter or I don't know.
Maybe their interns are making all the decisions here. Maybe it's just we knew the infamous Dignitas intern scandal. Maybe they just have some talent interns as well that are doing all these moves as well.
Yeah, I mean they've just made so many moves, and it's a bit frustrating because they are one of the teams that I feel should be at least within the top 12, around 12th to 11th. I think is a pretty reasonable spot for them.
Oh yeah, here it is actually.
See, I wasn't wasn't the fever dream.
Dignitas minus Ryan plus Baby J for stage 2 challenges 1.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I did see that actually.
This is people looking at the sign up page, and seeing who they've signed. I mean, isn't it just also possible that they haven't put Ryan on the page yet? I don't know.
Maybe.
But fuck knows. But yeah.
Who knows at this point?
I actually don't know Baby J either at all. So
listen, the story of this pickup is kind of funny as well. They got 13-0'd by an unsigned team that koalanoob was on. He went 17-4 against them, and then they just signed him. Sure.
Sounds good.
I mean, they got 13-0'd by
a tier 3 team.
Yeah, by Easy 5. And then they just signed the guy who dunked on them.
Oh,
I mean, this team has actually been, or I don't even know if there's the players on that team I keep seeing on different teams that are doing decently well. I don't even know if it's the same team at this point. I don't know what's happening, but I see them doing pretty well in the tier 2. But the 13-0 dig, I don't think that signing the Jett of the team that 13-0'd you is just going to instantly fix the problems you were having.
I mean, you clearly got some massive problems if you're losing 13-0 to any team that's that's not going to win a tournament. You're Dignitas. You can't
but what is this signal to their guys? They've already been signaling oh, we don't care necessarily how your longevity or anything like that. So I don't know, if I'm Dignitas, I'm feeling, or if I'm a player on Dignitas, I'm feeling some type of way about how quickly and how expendable we are. It's clearly they're making a push. Someone went 13 in that game, so that definitely feels very reactionary.
Yeah, it does. I mean, who's even making the decisions here for Dignitas?
They really have not made that many good moves. they have made some.
I think Rara was a good move.
Rara was a good move. And Maka was a good move. Maka was looking really good for a while. And he's kind of cooled off a little bit in the recent tournaments, but he was looking really good.
I forgot this is the team that dropped Superman, man. That guy was so good.
I mean, they dropped Superman. They got Odorous. That didn't work out. They dropped him. And they got Rara and Ryan. Rara looks good. Ryan, I don't think he's ready. I mean, Dignitas, in my eyes, should be competing with like the top 12 teams, at least like the top 16 teams in NA. I don't think Ryan is. He hasn't shown to me to be at that level.
He's pretty fresh, right?
Yeah.
Like in terms of CS to Valorant transition.
I believe
fresh.
So. Well, we can check right now. If you want to check when his earliest tournament was, Kurt.
Yeah, I
just
don't.
had the 15 more is. Yeah, December. So I mean, he's been around for a little bit, but I just don't think he's at the level that I want Dignitas to be at right now. Maybe he'll get there, but it looks like they want to just fix things immediately.
I don't know.
I don't know, man. I don't think. I think they need help with the decisions that they're making. They really need help. And this random signing, or not even signing, I guess he's on trial of koalanoob. I don't know, man. It's too all over the place. It's too sporadic. It doesn't look like there's thought behind it. They're just doing things.
Putting Sam on duelist ever was a bad decision, in my opinion. Like I back when they very first did that, I thought that it was a terrible decision. I think that they have wasted that guy's talent, to be honest. Like, he's not a duelist player. He's a smart player. You want him on a role that's to do with the flow of the game, not to do with the entering and the fragging. That doesn't make any sense.
When he was playing Sova, his utility was excellent.
He looked pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, he was good on that role.
But I think Maka was better. Like, Maka's peak has been better than some, so I'm fine with them keeping Maka and making these replacements. But they don't have a vision. This is a team that's just flying by the seat of their pants.
Yeah, exactly.
Feels like just kind of pick it up, riding and just collecting whatever they can, and then whatever happens.
Well, I mean, it could be in a situation for them where they just don't have the personnel in place, or they're feeling like, or maybe Valorant is like a very long-term thing for them, where like they're not looking for any immediate goals, but rather they're trying to find
replacing players.
Well, I think for them in their case, it's more of like, since they're not attached to their current results, right? They're not necessarily too attached. They're willing to trade people in and out pretty frequently just to find something that works, that they think will work longer term, you know? And obviously that's pretty short term like thinking still, because you can't just throw different pieces together, especially if you just get 13-0'd by this Jett player and throw it in and be like, okay, maybe this will work, right? Because you have to give it time to gel. But I do think that could be a situation. I mean,
imagine 13-0ing a team and then coming in and being like, "Yo, what's up, guys? I'm your new teammate."
I mean, that's so kind of Chad territory, honestly. Not gonna lie, that's kind of a Chad move, but it's like really feels bad.
I mean,
for
Dignitas
whoever
just
gets
signed the whole
kicked.
team. They should have just signed Easy 5.
They should have
really.
just signed Well, the thing is, there are pieces in there you definitely want to keep. Like Maka specifically, I think is like a piece that is worth being held on to.
Yeah.
So I mean, who knows? Honestly, Dignitas reminds me of where NRG was not that long ago, where like
that's a good
they're extremely lost. They don't have an identity. They have players doing different roles that may not necessarily fit them, and eventually you just rotate enough to where you will find the core that you want. And I think that's where we're at in the game currently. As I choke on like air, was that I'm choking on air here? Was that sometimes you do have to swap stuff around, especially if you don't really have if you're not super committed to these set of players necessarily. And I don't necessarily think that's always good, right? But I feel like that's where Dignitas is at, and why they're willing to just blow up the roster and give koalanoob the Bugatti and kick off Som or whatever, you know, like just because they 13-0'd them in a single BO1. Like that's just probably where they're at.
Yeah. It is funny though, isn't it? It is just
it's just silly.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit wild.
I always get. I think what frustrates me about these teams always is what you're getting at, the lack of a vision. They need someone behind the wheel of the car that knows where the destination is.
It is Peepo steer right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it really. I mean, if you're, it really is. Yeah.
Fucking koalanoob, yeah, sure, that'll do it. All right, let's take a look at the European bracket, because like Avast was saying earlier on, there's a bunch of games that are happening in Europe that aren't being streamed. Europe has also already begun, and there's also some cool team comps being used stuff as well. Now, the team comp aspect, though, is always funky because teams are playing against like much, much lower level opponents. So we've definitely seen people just roll and play.
Don't forget, we watched FaZe play Yoru on Split like multiple times in their open qualifier games.
Yeah. So I don't want to take too much away from the agent selection, but there's some interesting stuff going on, like Liquid trying and just Scream playing Phoenix and the
Jampy
Sky
playing
and
Jett
Sage stuff
for that team, which was odd. Like
What's
no
right?
one expected Jampy to be playing Jett for Liquid, like over Scream, which I think was like the really defining point. Even though we malted over this pre-show, but like everyone's like, it's in a meta, even though this has Ballista like written all over it, this particular comp. But you know.
Well, let's take a look at the bracket and look at some good games as well, because these games are not going to be broadcast. Like, absolutely not.
I mean, this top bracket is just nutty.
Yeah. So that, we've got Vitality playing against G2 in the round of 32.
Which we won't get to see.
No, won't get to see it, but that actually could be a good game. Vitality have made some moves that we'll get into in a little bit, but then the winner of that is probably going to end up playing against Ballista. And Ballista have made a roster move as well, because Bad EG was supposed to be going to Excel and ended up not going to Excel, so now he's playing with a fifth. So now they're playing with a different fifth. But either way, that top side of the bracket is really interesting. And I'm intrigued to see what G2 do going towards the future. Because after losing First Strike, they felt incentivized to make a massive roster move and really like try and get a different direction for the team. And yet it's not worked. And after losing this Masters, not even qualifying for it, they haven't had the same reaction, it seems. Like they're just continuing to try and make it work by changing stuff up. I don't know. Pretty interesting though. What's the next big matches going down there? Who does Ascend play against? Anyone decent?
Ascend is not looking like they're gonna play anyone good.
I mean,
by the way,
Giants and Heat play against.
The way we look at this bracket is one more look, right? Because this is, I don't know why Valor or why they have it this way in the first place. It's like open qualifiers, and it's a play-in, and then it's the playoffs, or it's the playoffs and then a play-in, even though it's just one big bracket in the first place. So look at this and look at the next one too. So G2 Ascend is a possibility for qualifying.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
For an actual spot. Okay.
Yes.
Now, why do they do it like this? Why is this a thing? Why don't they just write the full bracket out? How would you, if you've qualified for the play-in, but then you still have to play against the next team? You haven't. What? What?
What? You don't like that?
I don't know.
This is stupid. You've just arbitrarily cut the bracket in half and gone, yes, you have qualified for the next round.
That's how brackets work. It makes it more digestible. It's like paragraphs, Josh.
Dude,
it's like why you have to have paragraphs.
Different nomenclature too. Open qualifier and then qualifier playoffs.
But the play-in is not part of the playoffs.
What are those?
Yes, of course.
Who came up with this? Fix it.
Anyhow.
Fix it.
Ascend versus G2.
So yeah, Ascend G2 would be really cool. That's a huge game. Because Ascend as well, even though they just won Masters, I think there's like a bit of a sentiment that they were on a real heater individually too. They should still be favored against G2, to be honest. But if their players cool off at all, you could see a bit of a dip in performance from that team, more so than some other teams like your FPX or your NIP or Heretics.
It's only been 2 weeks. Like it's not been that long since Masters compared to like First Strike to now.
Yeah.
So I don't see that being a thing. I think they're coming out swinging. The one thing though is that we're playing on the new patch, which Ascend has not been able to practice because they were preparing for as long as G2, right? Because G2.
But once again, I personally don't think this patch is going to affect.
Well, you forget about Astra. I think Astra.
That's true. There's Astra.
They've been playing with Astra for G2 has been possibly playing with Astra and whatever all that stuff for 2 weeks more than Ascend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very true.
That could be cool.
I can see a world where G2 do win, and then the narrative becomes that it was just like a one-off miracle run from Ascend. But in reality, even in the game that G2 lost to Diffuse, they did have that genius Ascent map. Oh yeah, and if they can work things out on the other maps, I think they absolutely could beat Ascend. I think even in a world where both teams are playing well, they could beat Ascend.
Yeah,
I think
it's possible. Yeah,
depending on where the map pools go and whether or not G2 were able to bring the level that we saw them on Ascent on other
into
maps.
the rest of their maps.
Yeah.
All right, what's the next stage of the bracket? We got.
I think Wave NIP.
Oh, lasagna beam. Let's go.
Lasagna
beam. That's
a
amazing.
I think
team,
we've been keeping an eye on NIP, right? And NIP is going to play Wave, and that's a potentially
Where the heck
interesting
is this?
match.
Yo, you keep taking us
Dude,
on like the
why
biggest
you-
walk.
can we just
bro.
go down the
There's
bracket?
nothing that
One
interesting.
bracket at a
There's nothing that
time?
interesting in this
You're
one.
skipping
There's
Brax
not-
in
if
the
you look at the other
bracket,
side-
man. It's
I mean, I
driving
guess
me-
there's Guild Liquid.
My brain, man.
There's Guild
Kurt,
Liquid.
take us
I
back
didn't
to the
see
top.
any games that were that interesting between there, but I guess there's Guild Liquid, so fine.
Yeah. Guild Liquid is a huge game actually. That's enormous. Like Guild against like Movistar and Animal, maybe they'll get tested a bit because both of those teams are actually pretty decent. But you're expecting this to end up being Guild Liquid, and that is a great game.
That's another stacked bracket.
It is,
Liquid
actually.
are going to play against Saw first as well.
Yeah.
Presumably, and then playing against Guild. Yeah, I mean that's a huge game.
Round of 16 becomes potentially OG versus Liquid or Guild as well.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I would like to see Team Liquid have success.
Sorry, I just realized what the differentiations are, because if you make it to play-ins, you get to play later on. Like you get put in the open qualifier bracket later on in the next stages. So that's the differentiation.
Okay.
Anyways,
Right.
Okay.
tangent
There is
again.
a reason. There is a reason.
We're just uninformed,
Yeah.
raging morons.
Just ignorant
ignorant to the
monkeys.
truth
Just
of the
a
facts.
backwoods Hicks. That's
All
us.
right. What's the next stage of the bracket then? Have we finally got to the part where Avast was
Yeah.
delighted
Okay,
to
go ahead, Avast.
I mean, NIP Wave, simply because I still want to see NIP fix the issues they had, essentially. Like, because I was down on NIP heading in previously for Masters, and I felt vindicated. But I feel like NIP, they have like a very solid core there, and like a very interesting idea and concept of how they want to run their comps. And Wave has been pretty good, so it's kind of the test to see if NIP is actually if that was more of just them having a rough tournament, or if they actually are in a slump, and maybe their style of play is not necessarily the best.
They're a very aggressive team as well for a team like NIP to deal with. I think that's gonna be an interesting stylistic matchup too. Like the almost zero duelist comps that NIP run. They don't run them on every map, but they do run them on multiple maps versus such a aggressive style of a team like Wave. That should be a really fun game to watch.
And then would the winner of that bracket play against Alliance? How that matches up? Oh, Fnatic's in that bracket. Yeah, I mean, it really is. I'm not even going to pretend to figure out. All I know is if you go down, Fnatic and Alliance are in the same bracket.
Yeah.
I mean, this is...
and also, Honk is a low-key decent team, too. They have... I think Fnatic have been a bit shaky recently, and I do think that there's potential, unless Fnatic have, really... Fnatic are the kind of team, by the way, that I think could take control of, like, Astra and do really cool shit with her. But if they're still looking a little shaky like they have done before, that game against Honk could be close. Never mind the game against Alliance. Yeah.
I mean, Fnatic. Can you click on Fnatic, Kurt? They did just drop a map to some team at Team Queso. Just they have lost a map to them. They destroyed them on Bind.
On the Queso, bro.
I mean, if you want to look at some weird comps again,
Boaster was playing Cypher.
Yeah, on Icebox.
Okay.
And Shaq was playing Sova.
That is very strange.
Yeah.
All right.
They're doing some interesting things. I mean, I hope Fnatic can...
Again, let's not read too much into the comps. Let's not read too much.
Exactly.
This is probably Boaster like, okay, it's open qualifiers. Let's pull out the random comp that we never really get a chance to try in officials, Because he has like 15,000 composition ideas.
Yeah, they might be doing stuff like that. What's the next one then? So Alliance would be playing against Fnatic potentially here. That could be a cool game. And at the final end, we've got Team Finest, who Baddie G is playing for. Oh, this is actually really cool. So you've got Heretics in the same bracket as Entropic, which always seems to happen. That Entropic team is really good, and they always run into Heretics and end up getting boomed. It's really unfortunate. But, well, actually, they beat them previously, didn't they? They actually, that was the team that beat Heretics in the BO1 before.
Was it?
I think so, wasn't it? Isn't that? Yeah, they beat them in that BO1.
Oh, yeah.
And this was where people were like, oh, Heretics aren't good anymore.
I forgot about
that. This team was like, I actually really enjoyed watching Taimu in this game too.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Taimu's such a creative player in Valorant. Yeah, I'm excited to watch Entropic. The rematch against Heretics will be interesting. They're not favored to win though. Heretics are absolutely elite tier. But here's the other storyline that I wanted to pitch for you for this bottom area is that. So we all remember Baddie G from Ballista, right? The just Chad level Phoenix that was playing with them. So he got an offer to join XL, which is that new team being formed in Europe that David P was playing for. Yeah. So you got David P and Baddie G, which I think would have been an amazing duo. But they actually ended up not going with him, with Baddie G. And so Baddie G wasn't able to rejoin Ballista because they'd already got a 5th. And so Baddie G instead has been on a temporary loan to Team Finest, which means Finest is going to be playing with Baddie G against XL, the team that chose not to pick up Baddie G. So there's like this, I don't know, there's like a really cool opportunity for a bit of revenge, I guess.
Potentially. But that round is already hard for XL. Like they're playing against Ricks. Like that team made it to Challengers 3. They beat, I think they were the ones who took out Liquid, right? In Challengers 3.
They took out Liquid and they took a map off Ascend as well.
That is another. There's a lot of stacked brackets in this, or stacked sections of this EU bracket.
Yeah. Also, though, I like that now that we've seen Europe a bit more recently, you can identify the good tier 2 teams a bit more. Right, because previously it felt like just wading into a quagmire where you're just like, well, I don't fucking know. There's no VODs of anything. How are you supposed to tell who's any good? But at least now, I feel like it's a bit easier to be able to tell like who the dangerous and exciting tier 2 teams are that could potentially upset people.
It's like compared to what we just did with NA, where we're like stopping on every single point of the bracket. Now, EU feels like it is. Well, to be fair, we're a little more advanced. We're in the round of 64 here where we just started. But still, it feels like we're actually able to represent how stacked it is in terms of the teams that we're talking about. Because it is so top heavy in the EU compared to other regions. Like there are so many good teams. We missed FPX in the bracket completely.
Oh yeah, but they don't play. They're not.
They're in the side with NIP and Wave potentially. So like.
Oh, okay, that would be really fun. Yeah, an FPX NIP rematch going. Oh, rematch?
Not even a rematch.
No,
just a match we wanted to see.
Yeah, straight up match. Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. I wanted to take a little bit of a tangent here to talk about that Team XL, though, because they just announced their starting roster. It's a team that's been building for a while in Europe. Like I said, they were going to sign Baddie G, apparently. They've already announced David P, and they picked up a bunch of other players, too. And most notably, David P being their, like, core central player, formerly from G2. But the rest of their roster has now been announced. I don't know whether you can bring it up, Kurt, because I can't remember for the life of me off the top of my head who the players are. But this...
Happy.
Yeah, this is the main point is that I think Baddie G didn't get picked up because they went for Happy instead, who's previously been playing for Giants but ended up getting benched, and they brought in Fitzinio. So that's a big name. I feel like people overlook how big of a name that is from CS that's just playing in the not even tier 1 European scene.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like, well, tier 1 for a bit. It looked like around first strike year that he was really showing up. He's a solid player for Prodigy, and we just never got to see what happened with Giants. That's what I was going to... I forgot who were in the bracket with Giants earlier, but Giants just set up to not be seen by anyone again. We've never seen this new Giants roster play.
No, we haven't.
They've never been on stream. So we have no idea what happened with Happy in that roster. What is the story? I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
Not a clue.
Yeah, this roster though is intriguing. It has some people that I have no idea where they're from, what their history is, how good they are. And then they have some big names as well. Like, for example, David P and Happy. I don't know what to expect from this team. I really
was there a
have no idea.
given reason, by the way, that has anyone know why Happy was chosen over Batty G, or is it just turn out that way of like, oh, Batty G is not on this roster anymore? Like, we don't know what the reason why they chose.
No, and I think
Happy.
it's just speculation whether they chose, like, whether it was specifically Happy the reason that they didn't
Yeah.
go for
Well, I
Batty.
mean, it probably was because looking through what their other players have. Well, I guess it could be like what Ali or Ale. I don't know if it's Ale or Ali.
At the end of the day, they chose somebody over him, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, one of those 4 guys.
But to me, it's like just looking on the outside, though. It's obviously we'll have to see how this team performs because there's generally a reason why like a player is chosen over a different player, but. Batty G seemed like a really big rising talent within EU, like someone that could just dominate a game for you. Like his mechanical skill was legitimately off the charts with Ballista. Like what he could achieve was insane. So it seems kind of interesting to me when you look at a bunch of players that haven't had the same level of success yet. And like the most equivalent is like Happy, who still has not had like a very good career in tier 1 compared to even Batty G. Why Batty G would be off this roster. So, it's just an interesting move from the outside looking in. Who knows why, right? Could just be they performed better with some other player that they chose, right? They did scrims and like this player performed better. You never know. It's just odd to me when you see how good Batty G was on Ballista that for him not to be on this roster if he was rumored to go there.
I think one of the things that people value a lot is always experience, whether the chemistry is there or whatever, but experience is highly, highly valued, especially if you don't have somebody on the team at all, right? You kind of need a vet, somebody who's played high-level CS, somebody who's played LAN, somebody who's really been there in the trenches for years, because that allows development of some really good players. So, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting decision. I think that this roster is going to be basically brand new or completely fresh in terms of expectations. I don't expect too much out of them, at least in this first go around for sure. But even past that, I don't know. I just haven't seen these guys play together. I don't see any connections between them. Like,
you don't expect them to even beat Rix at the beginning.
I mean, that's a pretty tough first round opponent.
Yeah, that is just a hard opponent. If they do beat Rix, then I think
that's pretty impressive. If they can, even if they beat Rix and then go on to lose, I think that's still a good sign.
Yeah, that gives you some excitement about the roster moving forwards. They've obviously got decent players though. Very well then. That is the wrap up of Europe. I think that was. Oh no, sorry. There is one more thing as well. Team Vitality.
Okay, I'm just gonna. By the way, just gonna butt in. There's a huge piece of news that just popped up.
Oh yeah.
According to as sources say, Dignitas have decided to move out of Valorant for the time being. An unfortunate set of circumstances at the start of this roster. They're gone. They're just gone. So now it makes sense.
They just peepo steered themselves off a cliff.
They literally peepo steered themselves off the cliff. And now Dignitas' kill. Where were you when Dignitas' kill? I was on Plat Chat VALORANT.
Doing the podcast. Good time. Good time. Great timing. Thank you, Dignitas, for not releasing that like in an hour.
There we go.
And
so
a half.
Dignitas is gone. They performed a C9 in CS:GO, but for Valorant, and they're gone.
I mean, this is what we were talking about earlier, though. They don't have a vision. I don't think there was anyone behind the wheel. The car was just fucking going 100 miles an hour, and it has gone off the cliff. No one was driving. There was just. I mean, so all right, they're going to keep competing. I mean, I'm glad that they're going to.
I mean, there's talent on the squad, there's players that they can definitely have a good career, especially like I'm surprised that they're not even holding on to contracts at all. Even it sounds like they're not even going to hold on to contracts potentially.
It really does feel like they just don't have a clue what they're doing. I mean, yeah, it just feels like they don't have a clue. The NA Valorant scene is popping off right now. If you can get a team that performs at any kind of decent level, the viewership return is pretty enormous. But they've just completely failed.
I mean, yeah, they have just completely failed. They've made several bad roster moves, and now, with what has happened in the past couple of weeks, it's just chaos.
Def Rara and Maka, though, are good players.
Def has been really good for a long time. He
has
been under the radar because of their performances lacking since Pop Flash, but he has been a really good Sentinel.
He has, yeah. I've always been impressed by him. So I wish them all the best finding new homes. Hopefully they can be better than Dignitas. Like, hopefully they can find more success apart than they did together.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
It's honestly kind of funny that well, it's not funny. I mean, obviously they're playing together because they don't have any other options. So like because they want to play VCT. It's not like Dignitas leaves and they're like, all right, screw you guys, I'm out. It does tell you that they were trying to make something happen. And honestly, it kind of feels like some of the players might have been making decisions and roster changes anyways. you know, because they had no clue that this was coming, and there still was changes literally a couple of days ago in terms of who they're going to play with.
Right,
so,
exactly. That does imply the changes came from the players.
I think it's a little scary to me that org like Dignitas, who they're pretty up there, are already saying like, oh yeah, maybe it's because they don't know what they're doing, maybe because they don't have anybody who's really helping them. But why aren't they finding somebody? And is it because like, I don't know, the values of things are skyrocketing so much that Dig is like, yeah, well, we're gonna chill for a bit and then come back when something is going on, because this is a whole big org with money leaving very early, much earlier than I would have expected. This is, to me, it's very strange and worrying.
Yeah, Dig are a weird org though. All of my interactions with Dignitas, or like when I watch them in other scenes, I don't know. They don't seem to operate like other organizations do. They feel very old school. Like they don't want to shell out big buckets of money and have a very professional structure. Maybe that's just
haven't they shelled out big buckets for like League?
Yeah, but that's
pretty sure they have.
Yeah,
I guess it's League, so that's fair. Yeah.
I don't know what their reputation is like within League. I don't follow the scene.
Mm-hmm.
That is really weird. That is
unfortunate for the players. Yeah. Too. I mean, also. Fucking koalanoob leaves his team 13-0s them to get the paycheck, and they get dropped right away.
Oh my god.
Governor, can I come back to Easy 5, please? Please let me back.
Oh, I mean, that is so unfortunate.
It is so tragic for all parties involved, except for whoever was behind the mess. I mean, there was just poor managerial skills of this team have just let it off a cliff.
Yeah.
But I hope they can still pull something out and at least have a decent showing in the tournament.
That is really odd. Okay, well, the only other piece of roster move that we had was Vitality. Oh, hello. This is actually... They've just tweeted this, like, right now then, apparently.
Wait, one of our
never ends.
What is this?
Wait, what? Oh, I forgot. They have a women's team, don't they?
Yeah, it's just saying that they're keeping the women's team and they love the game, and we're going to try to support initiatives in the future. And they don't list Koala Bear there, of course, because I don't think it was actually officially signed. So Solemn, Def, Rara, Ryan, and Maka. Just a good thank you. At least they didn't just dip without saying anything.
Yeah, that's true. Like some other orgs, like some other teams.
Yeah, this is odd. Very odd.
Well, all right.
I don't know. Dignitas strike me as a strange. Any team that calls their women's team Dignitas female is, I mean,
well, that was like they talked about that. They said that they were not set on what the tag was, and they didn't really provide anything. So news orgs and whatever put the female tag instead. It wasn't them.
Oh, so what? Dignitas just called their team Dignitas or something.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
yeah,
okay.
Sapphire tweeted about it. She said we hadn't really thought of or come up with a tagline for it, but they think they were leaning towards the colors like other teams were doing.
Right. Okay. I see. Right. Vitality. The last piece of roster news is that this team, they've got rid of Feku and Machina, whatever, and added JESMUND and LoWkii. I only saw Vitality are another team a bit like Giants, where they did well at the beginning, and then as soon as they dipped off, they stopped being able to get to the point where their games are broadcast. So you can't tell what went wrong. You know, like they drop out of brackets too early before the casters and the observers are there. So you can't even tell what the problem has been. When I watched them when they were doing well, they were playing very aggressively, swinging constantly, trying to take as many angels as possible, pushing, always breach flashing aggressively. Like it felt like a honeymoon period of just a team that wanted to play as aggro as possible. But yeah, these are two players that have had pretty decent success within the scene, or at least have shown promise. JESMUND was on LoWkii, probably some other teams before that as well, and looked fairly decent. And LoWkii's been playing with L'Institute, and LoWkii was extraordinarily impressive when I was watching him, but also the kind of player that just was like walking down mid on split and just trying to take aim duels as much as humanly possible. So I don't know how sustainable that is, but in terms of the skill, very, very skilled player.
Yeah, don't really have much to add. I think.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen this team so
Yeah.
in a while.
Yeah, the LoWkii signing is interesting though. I think that's the one, at least for me, that's the one I'll have my eye on if they make it deep enough to be streamed. That is the player I'm interested in being on the team.
Yep. Well, there we go. Roster news over. Done with. 20K tournament summer championship announced by NSG, and the qualifier for it happened recently, right? And I think Cloud9 came away with it. Did anybody watch the qualifier?
No one did, actually.
We couldn't.
Not a soul.
No one
it.
did. Yeah.
I watched it on valor.gg. Like, that was as far as I could go.
We'll see. Numbers changing, scores updating. An interesting result, though. Cloud9 winning, and Anbox made it really deep. Could you bring the bracket up, Kurt? I have to refresh my memory on it.
But there weren't any tier 1 squads in this event because of the previous restrictions, but there were like very solid like tier 2 to tier maybe 1.5 type of teams in here with Anbox and C9 and Renegades and stuff. So it was
that's Game Changers.
Oh, that's the Game Changers. That's the Game Changers. Which also happened, but I'm assuming we're going to talk about that after.
What was the name of this tournament? It was like the
March Monthly.
Oh, the March Monthly.
Yes,
so they just
the NRG March Monthly.
It's really odd. So what did they do? So NSG always run a monthly tournament, but this one just also happened to give qualification spots for their summer championship. Is that the way this works?
Well, remember the winter championship? It's just basically they're doing the same thing. All the open qual tournaments that they run pretty much every weekend feed into their monthlies, and their monthlies feed into their seasonal shebangs.
Okay. But if you had qualified for challengers, you were not allowed to play in this. Is that correct?
It was top 8, right?
I don't know.
Top 8
I don't know what the rule was.
Yeah, top 8 was challengers, so yes.
So wait, if you qualified for masters, like old masters,
old masters,
you weren't allowed to play.
God, this format's gonna give me a hemorrhoid when I fucking think about this. Like, it's so hard.
It was just challengers. It was challengers 3 because koala cookie, or Bahonka
yeah,
were restricted from this tournament.
Right. Okay. So don't understand what that rule fucking does. We've already talked about that before.
All I know is Cloud9 blew 1. Anbox came in 2nd, which is pretty impressive, actually. That I was surprised to see that. How they did it, don't know.
Wait,
but they ran a little Astra.
Wait, Anbox qualified for challengers. All right, so maybe that.
No, it was.
Oh God, we can't go down this rabbit hole. We have to stop now. We have to stop now, or we'll be talking about formats and rulings.
Teams that were in the finals played Astra, and teams were playing Astra in this tournament. So
Anbox were running the Astra a bit. Which was interesting.
Also, this talking about the weird rules, just for one more moment. The announcement for the 20K tournament specifically says that. Let me get this right. I think it said teams that are in Masters, like new Masters, like actually make it to Reykjavik and other shit, can't play in the 20K tournament. And this 20K tournament was labeled as a mid-tier tournament. So I think the 10Ks are like open tier, 20K mid-tier, and Masters is top tier or something, however they want to label it. And I think that the top tier can't compete in the ones below them, and like the mid tier can't compete.
But we don't know.
But we don't know that yet. But
I'm gonna have to consult the runes to figure out what the
transparency
next rule set
at all. There's no transparency whatsoever about how they're trying to set up the scene. There's also no large amount of third-party tournaments either. They say, yes, this is part of our mid-tier circuit. What circuit? Like, everything at the moment is just run by Riot, apart from the NSG tournaments that run every month. It's not like there's a huge amount of even time for a bunch of different tournaments to be run. So, I don't know. The entire thing is very weird.
What tournament, too? Because, again, we didn't watch it.
We didn't get to see it. Didn't get to see it.
Some interesting things, though, to speculate about but not really. But I don't know. Cloud9 won. Leaf was playing Duelist now.
Mm.
And that's a thing.
Yeah.
Astra. We're playing. Inbox are playing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's as far as it goes. That's
how did
as
they?
far as the discussion goes.
How did they
Dignitas
use
lost.
the Astra? What kind of strats did they?
Yeah,
set up?
how are they setting it up? What
How
sort
were
of
they doing this?
combos?
Next
You
on
know?
the
They got kills. I don't know.
What's
Like,
next?
Oh, they got some kills.
The next
That's
thing on the list, next thing on the docket is game changers, because that was actually
Yeah.
the reason that this tournament wasn't broadcast, right? Is because they were broadcasting game changers at the time.
Oh, okay.
I think
That makes
I at least
sense.
think that's the reason.
Probably, yeah.
And Cloud9 White. I mean, to say they won is a bit of an understatement, isn't it? Didn't they plow the competition?
Yeah, I don't think they didn't drop a single map in this tournament.
there were some
so-
really close games. Like the game against Moon Raccoons was really close on both maps. The finals, they not
Map
as close.
advantage,
Also,
like-
upper bracket advantage where they got a free map.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's never going to be close, as we had seen in all of the stage 1
Okay.
upper brackets. That's just kind of, I don't know. You always end up seeing a 3-0 in those finals, to be honest. That's just kind of always how it goes. But-
Actually, something interesting too was that CLG Red, this team that was in the grand finals, this team was just formed for this tournament. Essentially, it had just existed for this tournament. So CLG Red is actually pretty much a brand new team, I believe.
Yeah.
And they had existed a little bit short of a time compared to like the TSM squad and even Moon Raccoons Black and things like that. So
Is that what they've called them? Moon Raccoons Black?
yeah, they're Moon Raccoons Black. Yeah.
Wow.
That's
That's very thematic. I'm imagining the Moon Raccoons, but then the dark side of the moon. that's where the Moon Raccoons Black live. That's pretty good.
But yeah, if you were to watch any game from this, the upper bracket final is definitely the best series. It was two very close maps. But I mean, at the moment, also, if you just want to watch Katie drop like 35 and then 29, so that's exciting.
Was that the final?
No, it was in the,
in
that
the
upper
bracket final?
ultra close upper bracket final.
that game
She
was
was
good.
35 kills on the first map and 29 and 11 on the second map.
That's crazy.
And it was like down to the wire as well. I mean, yeah, there's definitely just there still exists a skill diff between C9 White and the other teams in this tournament at the moment. That was it was definitely evident. But those maps being so close, even with Katie and just God mode, definitely a lot of promise with some of these teams and players. Like
Cool.
the duelist Sun Moon Raccoons Black, Diana was really good. Yeah, so very cool. And it also, it's going to be interesting to see these tournaments continue and where the teams in them, I think, play out in the overall scope of the scene. Because we've seen C9 White be in the like tier 2, tier 2.5 kind of space in the NA scene overall. Like they've beaten teams like Renegades and E United and like those caliber teams they can get wins against. And as these game changers continue to go on, it'll be cool to see the teams like Moon Raccoons Black or CLG that come up. And then, if they can get to that level of C9 White eventually, as the circuit continues, then how they'll play out in the overall scope of the scene. I mean, that is like the goal of game changers existing.
Yes,
Giving more players an opportunity to grow in that scene and then, expand and flourish in the wider scene. But yeah, it was cool. Some good games, and I think it's just it's good for the future. Excited to see where some of these players and teams end up.
I think one of the cool things about C9 White too is that this is like the first time they really fully execute this 6-woman roster idea, right? Because they still have Jazzykins. She took a break during VCT Challengers the first go around, and they brought in Katie. Katie was basically playing full time. And this tournament, Jazzykins came back, popped off in some of the games, but whenever they wanted to play double duelist, they were subbing Jazzykins in for, I believe, Alexis, which just, it's the same type of model that Heretics was using. And I think a lot of other teams are going to be trying. Maybe we'll see TSM doing that in this first Challengers 1.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? It's a framework that appears to be working in Valorant.
There was also a thread recently on the Valorant competitive subreddit. There was it had a wonderful clickbait title. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was something like
I'll tell you, what are the benefits to all female teams in leagues / esports, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
What are the
yeah.
difference to all female leagues / teams in esports?
Which I love those kind of threads because they're normally made by morons. And then this one is actually someone just explaining like why it's beneficial.
It's actually it's an excellent bait title.
It is a great bait title. You expect to open it and just get someone molding. Yeah, someone who's just like, fucking women in my game, you know? And instead it was actually a pretty articulate, nice description of why these kind of things are important.
Yeah.
So I think rather than us go through the entire topic, because it's something that we talked about previously on the show as well, it's just a cool thing to go and check out if you're interested, is this this thread that was posted onto the competitive Valorant subreddit.
Yeah.
Is just kind of detailing why it's beneficial to the scene to have a separate fleshed out women's system and not just including it all in the same group.
Yeah. Definitely worth
Also, this
checking
had to be one of the most, like, probably in my time in esports, I have to say this first Game Changers was probably like the best iteration of women's competition I've seen so far. Like, I actually am pretty excited about that circuit moving forward because it's not going to be some sort of like, it doesn't feel like it's an afterthought.
Yep.
It feels like it's just a second part of the system. You know, it's literally just one and the same. So I feel like it's actually going to be a very interesting tournament and, you know, initiative moving forward, because it doesn't feel like you're watching something that's divorced from Valorant esports. You feel like something that's just part of Valorant esports. And it's like it's a much better feel and production and even the competition, I think, is going to get better too as it moves along as well. And the competition was already relatively solid for like the first event. So I thought it was actually a super good tournament.
And the
for the first
stories
one.
and the banter, it was so good. It was like it was really, really fun to keep track of and watch some of those games as well. I hope it continues, and I honestly hope that we eventually even make. I think that the idea of this is also eventually to make it a feeder into the actual, like, get these girls teams playing in the actual like challengers finals types of situations. If I'm not mistaken, maybe I misread into that whole announcement part. I don't think it's like that now, of course, but it's a 50K tournament, and it was really successful. Viewership was good. Orgs were all talking about it. People from esports industry outside of Valorant were talking about it. I think, to be honest, this might be the first like dev supported thing like this, compared to some of the other times where it's like, well, no, not dev supported, but like dev run. Whereas other times it's like, hey, DreamHack, please run a woman only tournament type thing. You know?
Yeah.
Were they playing this on the new patch, or rather not on the new patch?
Astra was being
Astra
played, but I don't know if it was the Bucky patch though.
It was not.
No,
that's not even out yet.
That isn't out yet. I wanted to talk a little bit about Astra though, because what are we expecting to see with Astra coming into the game? I know that when we had Asuna on for Back Chat recently, he said that they had been practicing against a lot of teams that were trying to run Astra in their run up to the Masters gameplay. And a lot of the tier 2 teams that they were trying to scrim against were running a lot of Astra. We've seen bits and bobs of it being played in, I suppose, scene is the wrong word, but you can look at the match pages and see that people did play Astra during the NSG tournament and during the Challengers qualifiers so far for Europe. What's the expectations of this? You guys watched presumably a little bit of it during Game Changers. I assume there were some teams playing Astra there.
Yeah, C9 White was playing her pretty prolifically on Haven a lot of times. I think that's the map that we're seeing most of the time being picked. But in general, like overall, if you look at all the tournaments that have played and have Astra enabled, it's getting an 18% pick rate, and that's like pretty, like, globally in the EU qualifiers and in Game Changers in the monthly as well. Like, I tried to look at those stats, so it's getting play across all maps as well. Like Split, it's being played. Ascent, it's being played. So yeah, I think we're gonna see it. We're gonna see it soon on like a prominent broadcast. And I think the big thing right now is the combinations of like the gravity well and paint shells or nano swarms. That's how C9 White was using it a lot of times. Like they would get a smoke down, and obviously you want to be, mulling your smoke so that people aren't running through them. But on top of that, they're also putting a gravity well, and that's gotten them kills in a lot of cases. So it's really cool. It's always been single controller. I haven't seen any time where they're running it double controller or anything like that. No Fnatic styles or anything. I think the one thing that's hard is trying to use their conk ability, and I haven't quite seen that be used too much. But the conditioning that you're allowed to get with Astra is unbelievable. The fact that you can put down the stars at the beginning of the round anywhere on the map just allows the same thing to happen, and you can switch up and do mix-ups. It's really, really easy to run, in my opinion. Well, not easy, but you can envision a nice game plan with it.
Her flexibility is that's the big thing I think that Balla hit on there, was that she's pretty flexible with her smokes, with being able to reposition stars, and also there are the nice little micro combos you can get with the suck, with the gravity well. So I do think and her ult is great. I think her ult is like really, really good and has there's relatively very few things that are bad about it. So her kit seems like it should have an 18 to 20% pick rate when we get to NA and start seeing the upcoming challengers as well, in my opinion, because she just seems like there's a lot of room to grow with her, especially on certain maps.
Yeah, that is pretty cool, actually. I wanted to take a look as well at the agent pick rate for the recent Masters tournaments, Kurt. If you're able to, that same screen that you brought up, but for Masters in North America and Europe, because I think that there was a large discussion that we didn't get into last week about the meta overall and whether or not you need a Jett. Is it a requirement? How many duelists do you need? But I think a good place to begin with that as well is just the agent pick rate data from Masters itself and looking at meta diversity. Sure. Because what I noticed from watching both NA and EU is that North America had, this is the North American Masters here, had much less diversity. I mean, there are 5 agents there that didn't get picked at all. And I mean, one of them, Brim, Sky, Viper, these are agents that actually get picked pretty frequently over in Europe when it comes to bind gameplay. And you have 100% of Omen and Sova.
And if you want to just look at Ascend, who won, they love playing Sky.
Sure. Yeah. So but it's very obviously there's the Astra, which can't get played, and Yoru, which is a throw pick. So you're not really going to see those. But even the Phoenix has started to get played a little bit. And the Reyna is getting played way more in Europe as well. It feels like Europe is in a very experimental place right now when it comes to the meta. They're playing everything from 0 duelists to like double duelists and a Sky and stuff. And like the double duelists being like Jett and Reyna on some of the teams too. It's a very different direction that both of the regions seem to be going in. Europe really expanding its playbook, whereas NA seems to be narrowing it down.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there was one of the underlying stories of the first stage in EU were the upcoming aggressive teams, like this crop of tier 2 teams that we'd never really seen play, getting these upset wins, all with a pretty aggressive style, running Sky, running Phoenix, and running in. And they were really fast. And I think that's kind of now inspired a bit more of that Phoenix play in EU to be coming around. And yeah, the Reyna, I can't say I know where that has really come from, but that is just becoming more common. I mean, G2, they had Zeke playing Reyna in the Red Bull. Keylez obviously plays a lot of Reyna for Ascend.
Nookie and Nisao have both been playing a ton of Reyna as well. So it seems like, it's almost like the more the game goes on, the more people are learning how to get very consistent value from making info plays with Reyna and just pushing and just being able to, I don't know, feel really confident that they can push, take an Angel and be able to escape. And finding value from that.
I think people are learning also that there are even more tools available to them to set up their Reyna player for success. like with the addition of Sky, even though with the addition of Sky and even like Breach was existed a while, like there's definitely, it's just sort of one of those swings. I think every game has like swings in meta, like at times, like even with like, even with adding additional agents or, you know, different characters, like every game generally has like a swing of meta. Even games that don't have that, like even like traditional meat sports of sorts. If you're a basketball fan, there are always like
here we go
swings
again.
in what is considered really good. You know, there is the era of I have huge dudes that sit under the basket and they stop anything from happening. There's the era of the very athletic like point guard that all they do is they go in and they go for, and they're able to get a lot done on the court in the paint. There's the ones now we're sort of in the 3-point shooter era in a lot of ways. So there are always swings with everything. And I feel like Europe is sort of like, they're in the middle of both recognizing there are some more ways to set up aggressive play with the addition of Sky and also being like taking advantage of all the pressure that's been added in that utility. But also it's probably just a swing in the mentality where the tier 1 has been very much slower for a long time, and all the upcoming players have been playing just a very different style. And I think that's kind of just the cyclical movement of metas and really just about every game.
I think that we're pretty much still at a state right now where nobody has really figured out everything that can work, like any of these regions, right?
Yeah.
And I think EU and NA went about it in different ways, right? EU really went full tactical CS, like we want to use the utility that the characters bring. We want to use Breach. We want to use Viper. We want to try to like put all of this into a place where it can work. And then now they're realizing, okay, we can really start to put these guys in good positions with all that utility. And these Reyna picks, they can go off on their own in some cases and really do well. Meanwhile, in NA, it was kind of the opposite, right? They tried at first because everybody, you know, messed around with Breach and during the beta and whatnot. And they're like, okay, well, actually, the duelists are really strong because there's these guys like Shot Up and stuff and Thief, and these guys are really starting to just plow through everybody with Reyna, and so that kind of solidified that meta in NA. And now we're going backwards with 100 Thieves. We're going backwards on Icebox. We're starting to like, okay, actually, we should be picking Sage, right? We should be picking Sage on a couple of these different maps rather than go crazy because TSM also showed us the 3 duelist thing, right? So it's kind of just they're both. I think we're going to end up in the same place eventually, but we're going through this. I think both of these are going through a period of exploration, but just in opposite directions. And we'll finish with an even field of everybody's actually figured out, okay, these are the good comps, and this is a comp that's good against that, and this is a comp that's bad against this, and so on. Because I think EU has already gotten to that part where they're experimenting specifically counters and counter picks, right? I think FPX is an example. FPX used to run that bind Viper. They were the first team to actually do that, right? And then Fnatic comes in. That game, if you remember, FPX first strike for semifinals, they didn't pick their Viper. They didn't go for the mirror matchup. They went for a counter. And then they did it again against, what was it? Was it Ascend in the semifinals? Yeah, Ascend in the semifinals. Of same thing. So these are starting to be picks where these guys are trying to counter what the traditional picks are from the other side. And that's where EU is. I don't think NA is there yet at all.
I think that it'll certainly start to solidify very heavily once we get past Reykjavik. Once all of the regions play against each other and people really realize how the styles clash, it seems likely there's going to be a winner. At the moment, you don't know who the winner is between extremely aggressive compositions, very slow utility compositions. A lot of people, though, will point to the success of Ascend in Europe to indicate that Europe has historically been wrong about their assertion that you can shut down Jett and Reyna players that are skilled with a huge amount of utility. You can make it hard for them, sure. But I think what Ascend showcased is that when your players are popping, you can't really stop a Jett or a Reyna from getting that value. If they're hitting their shots, they have enough utility within the agent to be able to just run over you. And the amount of value that CNED got throughout that tournament, I think, has shifted and shaken things within Europe, where they have finally realized what NA's been talking about the whole time, that Jett is ridiculous. If you have a player that is so much more skilled than the players they're playing against, they can do miraculous shit on the Jett. And I think that also extends to Reyna too, because you saw people like NukkieI doing very similar things with the
Heretics
Reyna
even had the same effect in my mind at the finals of First Strike too, when they started running. They were running Reyna back then as well.
They ran a bit of it then, yeah.
So similar, but I think at this point it's like twice now it's happened in the finals. Like, oh God, like this is actually the way. So I think other teams in the EU will pick it up for sure.
Yeah. What do you think about the idea that a lot of the NA teams seem to believe though, they like take it to the other extreme, where it's like you need the Jett to win, that it's a requirement.
Not having it is the reason we lost.
Yeah, because I think that it is a reasonable argument to say that, like, the reason that that Ascend were able to win is because the Jett empowered CNED to do ridiculous shit that other teams couldn't really punish him for. It's a bit of like an unpunishable agent. But do you think you need it? Like, do you agree with the NA teams that say you need to be playing a Jett right now?
No, I don't think so. I think, to be honest, like the level of some of these Jetts, yes, these guys are far and away better than others. But Jett is not the reason why those players are far and away better than others. I think it's just a reason why they can make that gap huge in specific individual matches. But it's not, CNED is not going to be bad if he plays a Phoenix, if he plays, anything else, if he plays Sage, for example. Or he's not going to be bad. Yes, his utility is not the same. He doesn't have the same amount of self-sustain, the dashing, the movement, the capabilities that Jett has, but he's still going to be CNED, He's still going to be CNED. And if that can unlock other players too, then I think that's also somewhere you need to think about. And I think Ascend probably has, like, I'm not suggesting that CNED go off and go play Stage. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that just like Shot Up playing Breach instead of Reyna, Shot Up still Shot Up.
Sure.
I'm of the opinion that I think you can win without Jett. I don't think you're necessarily, if you're a top tier team, you might not lose without Jett, but I feel like you are definitely hampering your chances to win if you have a top tier Jett player and aren't playing Jett. It's sort of like it's not optimal.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. It's like,
that's how I feel as well.
It's not required, but if you are not doing it and you have the capability to do so, you are actively hamstringing yourself.
So are you actively hamstringing yourself if you have, like, if you're not developing a Jett player?
I would say that if you don't have, I would say that's why I'm kind of worried about this new NRG squad, in that, like, obviously they have a lot of mechanically gifted players with like Android and Tex, right? But neither have traditionally played Jett. And I think if you don't have the ability to play Jett in your team to a top level, I think that is going to be an active hindrance to you. I don't think you're automatically going to lose. I don't think you're automatically going to drop out of the top tier, but I think it will prevent you from outright winning, outright winning tournaments if you don't have the ability to play Jett at the top level.
I also think that there's an element to this where you have to be insane to get the same game-changing value out of Jett. Like, I don't think... I think if you were... I mean, that is just ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not.
That's just stupid.
He's not doing that on Phoenix.
No, but if you have a team full of, like, decent players, but you don't have a freak on your team, then I don't think you should be trying to put one of those players on Jett just in the hopes that they pop off. But if you have someone on your team that is like Baby Bay or CNED or
then
Tens,
the question is, if you don't have a freak on your team and you're playing against a team with a freak, would the team with the freak win even if they weren't playing Jett?
I don't.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I don't think all the time. Like, if you have a freakishly good player, here's where I think the Jett comes into it. If you're a really, really excellent player, but you're playing... I'm going to use the example of Sage for, like, JD, for example.
Sure.
Like, JD is really talented, but you're limited. No, not limited is the wrong word. You're able to be punished much more by utility because you don't have the get out of jail free card of a Jett or a Reyna where they can dismiss away or dash away and avoid utility, essentially.
Yeah.
When you're trying to stop somebody like CNED from getting value in these games, you saw all of these EU teams throwing shit tons of utility at him. And he's dodging it, he's jumping, he's flying, he's dropping off things, he's dashing behind them. And it becomes really hard to pin him down and to actually set up an advantageous fight for you, especially when he has the knives or like the shit he was doing with the AWP, where he's like jump peeking with the AWP. Like, the guy's ridiculous, but I think the Jett also stops him from being punished by utility. I think normally if you're playing against an amazing Raze player or something, even with Raze, even though it has the mobility, you can like use smokes or use mollies or use shock darts or recons or something to pin them in a corner.
We've seen Raze try to do what Jett does with the Raze AWP and then satchel away. It's not the same effect. It's not the same.
It's not the same. But if you
it's
have
not even the
Jett,
same in like a flash and dash situation at all. Like, it's so slow and clunky.
Yeah, and it just seems like if you can take way more risks. I think that's what it comes down to. If you are a player that can get value out of taking risks, like they're not actually that risky for you because they often pay off, but then you don't get punished either. So you're like, it's got a pretty high likelihood of paying off, and you can't get punished for it really because you're on Jett or Reyna. It then becomes a massive. It turns risky plays into percentage plays. Yeah. You should be going for them because they're no longer risky, and that I think is like the crux of the thing there. But I think you still can get value without the Jett. It's just that it empowers such a different style of play, and it makes it very hard to counter.
I wasn't really thinking about Baby Bay when I was talking about like CNET and stuff, because I actually think that Baby Bay is one of those players that you want to always have on Jett. Not because I think that he's just a bad player, but just because Baby Bay does things that even CNET isn't doing, you know? And
not all of them are good. Some of them are just some of them are what's happening. But
right. And that is the thing, Sideshow. You're getting at this, is that Jett's dash is unlike any other mobility in the game. It's like a mix of being able to get deep like Omen with TPs, but with the speed and that Raze doesn't even have. I think that in this game, because of abilities like that, and Jett's is far and away the best, you are inherently challenging space on a map in a different way than people are really thinking of, right? So at the beginning of the round, you have the barriers, and Jett instantly, because you have Jett, gives you access past that barrier where you now have control. And that's where Baby Bay is really, really taking advantage of situations, because they're creating this situation where teams are playing with less map control right because they have Jett, right? Because Baby Bay has been threatening these ideas, because he's conditioned their minds to be like, okay, he could actually be here instantly. So we have to start our default from farther back, right? These are things that FaZe is doing to other teams that people aren't really considering, and that Jett specifically unlocks. Now, I think I changed the question here to, is that necessary? Is that something that you 100% have to be doing constantly? Are you specifically trying to put Raze in those positions where you're taking extra map control right at the start of the rounds just by virtue of having the character? I don't know. I haven't really set my mind on where I am on that yet, because I watch FaZe, it's really good, but then I watch a team like NIP and they are slow, methodical, able to get through this space no matter what anyways. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think you need it. Like, I think there's a world that absolutely could have happened where FPX end up winning against Ascend, or, Heretics end up winning against Ascend, and the narrative is very different, because even though the Jett got massive value during European Masters, it didn't end up winning. And the team that didn't have the Jett ends up coming out on top. You only need to change a couple of rounds in those games. Yeah, and
one.
When it comes to Heretics, just one round could have been different, and they end up actually winning the tournament. And so, but I do think that when you watch CNED play, especially, and Baby Bay as well is a great example, you can tell that if they weren't using the Jett, if CNED was playing something else, that team would be fundamentally different. Whereas if NookieI's playing any agent, the team is roughly similar. Or if FPX are playing a slightly different composition, the team is roughly similar. But if you remove CNED from the Jett or Baby Bay from the Jett, the team is going to play wildly differently and not as well. They're just not going to get the same value.
Like if you take Shazam off the Jett.
I mean,
same?
they're a bit weird, right? Because you could see a world in which they could run a Jetless comp with like Tens just being
before.
Reyna too.
I mean, they've done plenty. They have done Jetless comps in the past and have still found success. I mean, they had done duelist comps in the past and found success.
Yeah,
I feel like Sentinels is one of those teams that is playing Jett, but is not actually doing the stuff. Like they're not taking that extra space that I'm talking about, like CNET is and like Baby Bay is. Except when Tens plays it.
Tens is one of those players.
Tens does it like that. When Shazam was playing it, he was really just doing it in like the classic Jett Opper style, where he will, on Icebox A, he will be holding a more forward position on defense, and then he will be dashing out and playing more passive angle. I just sort of land in the same camp, I think, as you have asked, as to what you were saying earlier. I feel that if you have a player who is capable of playing Jett, but not only capable, but will be enabled by Jett's utility, I don't think that there is a reason to not play her. And not necessarily all the time, but at least on some of the maps where she's really good. I think that then you should be playing her. But do you need... If the question is just, do you need a Jett to win or be the best team? Or would Jett have made the difference if FPX were playing it? I don't think that is true. But does...
Let's get more interesting then. Let's say, for example, should 100 Thieves switch and play a Jett rather than single duelist race?
The problem is that wasn't the problem with 100 Thieves.
Yeah,
I think that they were. I don't think that was the problem with the team.
So the question then is no in basically all circumstances. It's just I think the two opinions. Oh, basically all of our opinions is if you have a player that can play Jett at a high level, then you should be doing that in all circumstances, and you should probably be trying to develop one as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I also think that like it's because we've like at the end of the day, I would rather have a really good Jett player than a really good Raze player. Almost like currently in the current meta, I feel like I would rather have that. Like that's just obviously it's map dependent a bit in how your team plays, but across the board, if I had to pick like a duelist player and what I'd prefer their agent pool to be, I would currently prefer to have a really good Jett player like versus a really good Raze player, because I feel like it's far more flexible across a variety of different situations. And also we forget the fact that Jett allows you to do things that, well, we talked about a bit that no other agent really can. A, you can opt more effectively with Jett than you can any other agent. And B, Jett is by far the best duelist for your economy because of the knives. Because there are certain rounds when you have knives, you just don't have to buy a gun, you know? And like you're just able to play around that. And so Jett is able to not only utilize the op better than anyone else, but also can be better for your economy and do things with the ult that no one else can too.
If CNET has knives, literally, it's not an equal.
Yeah, it's just it's overall
crazy.
A better pick to have a better Jett player right now than it is to have a better Raze player. Which even though I don't think that's why going back to your point, I don't think 100 Thieves would have won with Asuna on Jett. But imagine if Asuna was like a CNED tier Jett player, how much potentially if that matchup could have been slightly different just because of what he could have done with the Jett that he couldn't do on Raze. You know,
you can carry more. You can just be.
You can do things
carry.
that you couldn't.
Like
exactly.
It also in some teams I think it just fills over cracks in the team because you can just get away with shit.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. And I think that's always something that is really important.
But at the same time, it also leaves gaps too, like because of how aggressive you have to be, how aggressive these Jett players are playing. That does leave gaps, and I think that's what Sentinels abused with against FaZe. Right? It's like because you instantly have the possibility of Baby Bay's going to overextend at the beginning of the round, and he can't get back to his team as fast. Right? That is a thing that that teams that run Jetts have to compensate for. Right?
Yeah.
Well, we now have the mauled central topic because we teased it last week.
Yep.
And we've got to get into it. And we're already, 2 hours into the podcast? 2.5.
2.5. Well,
also, do you want another piece of breaking news, by the way?
Oh, God. What have we got?
So they TSM confirmed that Brax is signed. So Brax is signed to TSM.
Oh, he's properly signed to the
They
team.
just, so he's signed as the 6th member of TSM. They just put it out like 30 minutes ago.
Sweet. Okay. Well, I'm just interested to see what they do.
Yeah.
Okay. So the molding topic that we've got coming up is world power rankings. And I think that now is the perfect time to do these because Reykjavik is around the corner, and that's where we'll really know what the world rankings are. This is the Reykjavik is the first time where you'll be able to put together a real list of the top teams in the world. But it's also important to set expectations coming into Reykjavik too, and I think that that'll be harder right before the tournament because you won't have just seen all of the teams play at max capacity. Like, for example, well, actually, I suppose you will do because we'll have Challengers finals actually in all of the regions. But now seems like a good idea to kind of look forward and project before we get even close to see like what the community thoughts are, what our thoughts are, before they just get boomed at Reykjavik and fucking Japan wins or something. Yeah. So,
absolute Jupiter, take it down.
Yeah, does Japan even have a spot? I don't think they do, right? For Reykjavik,
they have to, right? They have to because no, it's part of the Asian.
Is it part of Asia? Actually, I think
they might.
They might
have the Challenger Finals thing where it's like the same thing as EU. We just completely ignore it because
I can't remember.
Not a clue.
I can't remember. Anyway,
I'll look it up.
Anyway, world power rankings. I think Kurt has been working on a fancy graphic. I think
we got a custom graphic.
Will the curtain be lifted and I can see?
Get that graphic up.
All right. So before I show this, teams aren't in any specific order. I added all of the teams that won Masters in their respective region, but I didn't add Japan's Crazy Raccoons. So if you're a fan of Crazy Raccoons, they're missing from here. Everybody else is here.
Poor Crazy Raccoons.
Right.
Oh, look at it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
The answer, by the way, is yes, there is a Japan slot.
What, sorry? Say that again.
There is a Japan slot.
Oh, right.
Comes from the Challenger Finals.
If this was the real top 10, people would think we were smoking crack.
Yeah, I mean, people be rioting in the streets over this one.
I mean, if we don't put like 100 Thieves, Sentinels, TS, like that kind of stuff, people are already gonna be like, wait, what the heck? I thought NA was on top.
Yeah, I think then first step is probably the way that I like to do the power rankings like this is in order to get my head in the right place. I like to just throw like the right teams in there, even if they're not in the right order, and then fix the order later.
Well, the top 3 are obviously somewhere in the top 10.
Sure,
we have in there.
Australs. Well, should we start moving teams out of the top 10 in order?
Yeah,
to make space?
Can't we just like take them all out and just start anew? Just take them all out, you know?
Well,
we'll take
them all out.
Take X10 out for now.
Vision Strikers can go.
Yeah, for now.
I don't want to hear it.
Australs
can go.
Yeah.
Gambit and Footballist both need to leave as well, to be honest.
Yeah. Goodbye.
I think
into the void.
Maybe.
Gambit and Footballist, we can keep them out.
FaZe could be in there somewhere. I think leaving these 5 on there for now is okay.
Okay.
Oh, very.
How do we want to do this?
fancy.
Do we want to start from bottom or do we want to start from top?
I think we should start from the top. Starting from the bottom is really hard.
Yeah,
like
it is quite hard. Well, can
if
we
I
get
asked
10
you who
teams
the
on there first? Like, let's get another 5 on there.
Sure. I mean,
FPX.
Yeah,
Gotta
FPX
have
looked
FPX.
sick. I think
Gamelanders should go on there, in my opinion.
Yep, Gamelanders.
Yeah, definitely.
Good idea. I mean, Brazil's kind of hard actually because, to be honest, Furia and Sharks are both insanely good too. But I think it's pretty reasonable to have Vikings and Gamelanders as the top 2. I mean, who are we talking about in terms of?
I don't even know.
Well, EU really does have just a top 3 right now. In my opinion.
I'm looking Guild, Defuse, and NIP. I'm like, oh man, these guys are going to be somewhere up there.
I don't think those teams would crack the top 10 probably. In NA, though, it really is just Sentinels and FaZe right now. I mean, if you wanted to say like third best.
Envy?
Is Envy going to be a top 10 team worldwide? Maybe.
I don't know if Envy will be a top 10. I honestly don't know if Envy would be a top 10 team world, you know? I'm not sure.
Well,
I don't know.
The thing is, there's going to be some teams that are like
on the cusp.
Yeah. So
I mean, it very well may be one of the teams that we just pulled off that won one of the other regions too. I mean, it's possible.
It
we
could
just
be.
don't know because I haven't watched X10. I don't know how good they are.
The Thai team, X10.
Yeah, I don't know. They could be good. What do you mean? Yeah, I haven't watched them. They could be better than I don't know. They could be like an 8th or something. They could be better than Envy. I've never watched them.
Okay.
What do you?
The Southeast Asia teams frequently got beaten by the Korean teams when they were playing
so
against each
maybe Vision
other.
Strikers are number one, and we got it all wrong.
Well, yeah, that
I actually think that we should put Diffuse and Furia on here.
I think, well,
that's hot, but I like it.
But
let's order these guys first. The ones we have on let's order these guys up at the top.
Yeah, let's do that then.
Okay.
Sure.
So because we know that our number one team is on the board right now because we can't even think of like who else. So what are you guys thinking for your number one team? I want to start, I think, here with Balla, to be honest, because it was your idea to start ordering them. So if you're looking at number one team in the world right now, who are your candidates and who are you leaning towards?
Okay. You give me some space here to waffle a little bit. I like that. I was just gonna go full send.
Talk your way through it.
For me, Heretics, FPX, and Sentinels. Those are that's like where I'd be. I don't think Sentinels is top one. I think it's between Heretics and FPX, and to me, I just put Heretics up there just because, dude, they're so good. They have flexibility. They were messing around with the 6-man roster. Now it's going to be solidified. They're going to have time to really, really work at that, and they have motivation to work at that because they just lost in the other time against the Sens. But it was close. I was, for a second, I was like, I messed up. I didn't pick Ascend, but I still just haven't seen enough from them over time because remember, they were a Challengers 3 team that made it all the way through. Almost got eliminated completely. So for me, I have Heretics at number one.
Yeah, I mean the obvious counter argument that I know that people are going to say immediately if you said Heretics are the best, even if you said Heretics are the best team in EU, people are going to be like, but they lost to Ascend. But I think that a lot of people, come from the point of view of games where they have like league systems or leaderboard systems or something like that. I think that you have to think about things in a similar sense to like the CSGO circuit, where if a team came second at every event in the world, they would probably be the number one team, even though they hadn't won anything, because the level of unless there was another team that was number one at everything, if the rest is changing all over the place, the consistency to be able to get really deep in tournaments over and over again and make it deep and have chances of winning is enough to make you the best team in the world sometimes. Like, you don't have to have won the tournament literally. I think I'm inclined to agree with Balla here. I want to see more from Ascend. Ascend had an insane showing in that tournament, but And I think that they're incredibly prepared and they're absolutely in the elite tier of Europe. But considering how well Heretics played throughout the entire thing, their performance during First Strike, and now being able to be in a position to repeat it here again, like Heretics are.
We're going to factor in First Strike? What are we factoring in here?
I don't think so. I think this should be like the last. I think this should be just 2021. But I think my point is that with a lot of the European teams, we actually didn't see very much of them in early 2021,
so
and Heretics is one of those. And so for them, I feel like it's like
not to use First Strike. I think
it's like that was the last major tournament, and it's not. It would be ridiculous to assume that they went from being on top of the world at First Strike to being shit again, and then back to being good. They were probably just great the entire time. It's just that we didn't get a chance to see them.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that, especially given how good the top like 10 in EU are. Because who's in 10th in this tournament? G2?
Yeah, something like that.
So that's kind of nutty.
Where are you looking at next? I will say I am a big European simp.
Yeah, so I know what Josh is going to go with this. I will also, as someone that is the original Heretic simp as well, Team Heretics number one seems like a no-brainer to me. I feel like they're just, well, not a no-brainer, but I don't care. I think their game versus Ascend was so close and they're such a new team, and Heretics had such like pretty strong consistency and fundamentals that it seems hard to underrate Heretics as the number one, in my opinion.
The only stumble they had was Challenges 1, where they went out in a best of one, and they just started their 6-man roster thing where there was clear problems right after first strike. So
and they lost to a Sin, but they were dealing with CNED, who was currently on every form of methamphetamine possible potentially, and was literally cracked out of his mind. So,
but beyond that, they didn't go. They went straight out of groups, and they went straight out of groups in a good way in Masters. Like they stomped starting in Challengers too. They had no problems. Maybe they struggled a little bit in that one game versus what was it, Chakalaka or whatever?
Yes, Chakalaka. Yeah, they actually did. I mean, they were convinced that those guys were wall in as well. I know that this has only been like hinted at before, but those players were so mad, and I don't think they were. I think they just got in their own heads about it.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, I'm okay with Heretics at number 1. I think now it gets kind of tough though, because you have to give mega credit to Ascend for beating every other EU team that would be on this list.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Every other team from EU that could be on this list, they have beaten in order to get into the whatever this is, top 2, top 3.
But here's why I wouldn't put them at number 2.
Okay.
Because even though Ascend, you could seriously make an argument that they should be number 1 right now as well. I think there's an even better argument for Sentinels being at number 2. And I say that as the biggest EU
Agreed.
Because when we're talking about the whole of 2021, Sentinels, and partly this is because NA has afforded them more opportunities to do this, but it's also afforded them more. So let me go to the beginning of my point. Sentinels have just always been consistent throughout 2021. Every time they've been beaten, they've come back and beaten the team that's beaten them. Yeah. They rolled Masters. This version of Masters, they pooed on them. There is a clear gap between Sentinels and the second best team in North America right now. They are above the pack by a significant margin. And they've been the best team in North America since, I don't even know, August, something like that, you could say. And, you know, there was a bit of, are 100 Thieves the best team when it came to First Strike? But when you look at it over a longer period of time, they've just been the perennial top team. And even though that is partly because the North American format, you play out all of the brackets, so they've had more of an opportunity to showcase that they are consistent and can always make it deep. They also have had more opportunities to fail as a result of that. They've had more opportunities because the bracket's fully played out to have slip-ups, to have opportunities where they've not made it to deep and to a finals and stuff like that. But they always have. The only team they haven't come back and beaten recently is Envy, because they didn't get a chance to this time around.
Well, Envy just
Envy
flumped.
Yeah, Envy flumped. So to me, it feels harsh to have Ascend in 3rd after they were the best team.
Here's what I just want to add it in there. Yeah. Because I think you have to. Where are Vikings in this conversation? Because they won Brazil. We rate the region. They beat Sharks at the start, who might end up on this list when we go down to it. They could be near the 10th.
Yeah, they could.
Because they are a super legit team. They had beat Game Landers in a tournament outside of the stage 1. They beat them in the finals. Vikings beat Sharks. Then they beat Pain. And then they just 3-0 Game Landers. So they've got to be somewhere in the conversation here at the top. They have to be. I mean, that's an impressive run. And to just dominate Game Landers in the final is not to be ignored.
Give me a brief on like this team and their play style and whatnot, because I'm not as familiar with Vikings as you guys.
I think in a general sense, Vikings are just one of the more well-rounded Brazilian teams. They're one of the teams that you could see in the game against Game Landers. They have a great understanding of how to actually play against the style of that region. They just had a hard read on Game Landers and also the insane talent to be able to shut down MW, who might be the best player in the world, John, etc. I mean, they have just unreal players on that team in their own right with Stacey, Sodhawk. So,
to talk about like specifically the style of the team though as well. most of the Brazilian teams, I would say, are powered by their duelists, but Vikings aren't really.
No, they're powered
not,
by. Yeah.
So they're more. So they're more like an NIP or FPX in EU.
Well, no, because they still play a really fast pace because everybody in Brazil plays a fast pace. But it's not like their duelists are taking over the game and getting all of their kills for them. The duelists are just making space, and mostly the work is done by Sassy, who is their Sova player, and I think quite a lot of the work. Not all of the work, but a disproportionate amount of the work is done by their Sentinel player, Sadhak, as well, compared to how most of the other teams are structured, where it's like, for example, Gamelanders, it's MW and John are just like the be-all and end-all of whether that team succeeds. And then they have good supportive players to put MW and John in good positions. But Vikings kind of works opposite, where the duelists are going out there and making space, and then the other guys are using really solid teamwork and excellent supportive player skills to close out the rounds. But
I hesitate, but I don't want to because I haven't watched much Brazil. From what you guys are telling me and what other people are telling me, that's where I'm basing my opinion. So I don't really want to fully add to this discussion other than to say historically, Brazil in CS and I don't know Overwatch history, but in 1.6 as well, Brazil has produced one or maybe two really, really, really good teams that will beat out, the best of the best from other regions. And after that, not so much. So I hesitate to go throw Sharks up in there and even go throw Gamelanders if they're under Vikings all up in there just because of his history. And that's how I'm kind of gauging in between, right? What happens if Heretics plays against Sentinels? Because that's all we really have to go off of since we haven't watched it.
And I do think that the Brazilian scene has a really weird style. They don't have the largest depth of tempo that they play at and that kind of stuff. They have one way that they approach the game, and it's pervasive throughout a lot of their teams. And I don't really think that is going to lead to massive long-term success unless they skill gap the other regions. Because I think that other teams, if I imagine them going up against a Heretics or a Sentinels or a FPX, the teams that are very well-rounded, extremely good at countering their opponents and playing around them, I do think that they would figure out ways of being able to deal with that level of aggression. And I'm not really sure whether Brazil have another gear that they can go into. But I think that the Vikings are one of the more well-rounded versions of them. I would not be putting them in fourth place, though. My fourth place team would be FPX. I think that.
Well, so this is what we're settling on for top three.
Oh, well, are we guaranteed? Are we all agreed that Ascend is 3? Is that what we're all agreeing here?
What? Who are the other options? Where would you want?
I just would have potentially added FPX.
Really?
But I think
at that point,
I'm not arguing for FPX to go there. I'm just saying I'm playing that. Someone could have argued for FPX. I'm just saying I agree that Ascend should be number 3. I'm just wondering if we were done with that conversation.
What I would say as well about Sentinels is how much I think that another perspective on the NA scene, aside from what you had gone at, which is their ability to come back from losses, figure teams out, and then just dominate them the next time and stay on top because of it. I think there is an argument to be made, and I think there will be people who make it, that the NA scene compared to the EU scene, the top 10, not as hard hitting right now.
Oh no, it isn't. NA's in a slump right now.
Envy flumpled out.
Yeah. Flumpled.
Envy,
adding more and more syllables to this word.
Well, that was that was an actual, because you can see Envy flumpling.
Right. Yes.
They had flumpled their way out. FaZe obviously just went on their run, which was, it was one-dimensional to an extent, and they got figured out by Sentinels.
Yeah.
And then obviously 100 Thieves were just, they were also in a flump. They were just lost.
Yeah. So what are you saying that Sentinels should be further down because their competition isn't as good?
I'm not necessarily saying that's what I believe. But
come on, guys,
there's something to be argued.
Let's get some points out here, because I've seen a lot of people waffle.
No. I'm presenting all sides here, because I think that's going to be is going to be something that people say, and I'm proposing the question: do we factor that in? Do we think that the NA scene is Not as hard-hitting as EU right now in the top 10, so Sentinels should not be as high because the competition wasn't really there. No one tested them. They just walked over the competition. Or is it that they walked over the competition and we should be rating them highly?
I think they have been tested in the past. It's just they adapted really heavily, and then now they added tins. Like this roster with tins, 100%. Like I would say if this roster did not currently have tins, I don't think I'd necessarily put them number 2. But because they added tins, yeah, I think so. Because I feel like tins gives them that extra oomph to keep them elite. Because even if their competition might not be as high as Europe,
tens for as long. Where I'm like, yeah, for sure. Like,
no, I think the addition of I think without tins, I would have put Sentinels lower. But I think tins gives them the ability to, like, even if their overall region strength is lower, it gives them enough firepower, and because they're so adaptable and their compositions are so flexible, that I feel confident keeping them at number 2 because of their dominance in NA. I feel confident with all those factors.
I'm the opposite. I feel like with tens, yes, tens is a god. And you guys have to forgive me because I didn't get to watch the Cloud9 massacre that he went on. But I've never thought that because he's on this team, that gives them this extra edge. I think I'm going to need more time to be able to say that, right? Because he's still a new figure. He's still, like, just because they played really well with him one time does not mean that that's going to necessarily continue.
I think
it's still going to be high because it's Sentinels, because the core to me is really, really freaking good. Yeah, I rate the core is super high.
Yeah.
I think it's unacceptable to have Sentinels in, like, 4th place.
Yeah,
I would say,
absolutely.
So I think we're only really saying whether it's 2nd or 3rd.
I'm trying to figure out how much I value the teams that they beat on the way, because then when you compare them to Ascend, who beat every top EU team, and if we put FPX in fucking 4th, and they beat FPX and Heretics on the way to winning,
Well,
then you have to rate that pretty highly.
Here's a way that we can do this slightly better, or like maybe give us a bit more to chew on. Let's compare actual players, because one of the things that I see in EU is consistently they have a deeper, like, all 5 players are gods compared to NA, where not necessarily that's the case, right? For 100 Thieves, I don't necessarily believe that they have that 5-man depth. Whereas Ascend or FPX, I feel like 4 of their players, and Heretics, 5 of their players are just really, really good. So to me, I feel like Sentinels is the only team in NA that I rate more than 3 of their players as gods. Like, these guys are dominant.
Yeah. I think that Sentinels check all of the boxes, and it's not their fault that the rest of NA is slumping right now. That's what it comes down to me.
I think that is fair.
They are head and shoulders above all of the other teams in North America right now, and they've been consistently above the other teams in NA for the whole of 2021 and 2. So I'm inclined to give them the number 2 spot, but I think it would be reasonable to have them at 3 behind Ascend as well.
I
think that it's obviously going to be jarring if you see the list and Ascend wins Europe and you rate, like, Europe really highly, and yet they're at the number 3 position. But I think that's only a factor of time. It's only a factor of time. It's not, if Ascend carries on doing what they did before, they would rise up. I mean, they would be at number 1. If they kept doing it.
Absolutely.
If they do it again in Challengers Finals for EU, they will literally be at the number 1 spot. They will climb up. But they would, I mean, dial the clock back 1 month from now, they wouldn't have even been in the conversation for the top 10.
No, they wouldn't.
They literally wouldn't
have made a graphic.
No,
we have a graphic for X10. We wouldn't have that one for Ascend.
Yeah.
So I am comfortable with this top 3. I just think that Sentinels and Ascend, I think the difference between those 2 is really narrow. I mean, with Heretics as well at 1, to be fair. I think Heretics they're at 1, they're holding on to it, but it could slip.
Yeah. This is so ridiculously close across the board that, like, it's honestly could go anyway, like, this is just how we feel, for all the angry Redditors out here. This is very close.
I do want to put FPX next on the list, though, because
I don't.
No.
Tell me why.
Here's why.
Tell me why.
I think FPX looked like they were the best team in Europe coming into Masters, or at the beginning of the Masters run.
That is true.
Extremely well-prepared team. Very, very good idea of how they want to play the game. They were really, really close to being able to beat Ascend and then continue to go on their run. Who knows who would have won between them and Heretics? It's incredibly hard to call at that point. They're clearly in the elite of Europe. And yeah, you can have questions about, we didn't see them over the course of 2021 earlier on because they were still adding Dimasic, so they didn't play in Red Bull home ground, that kind of stuff. But there is not a significant tier difference between Heretics Ascend and FPX. There isn't a large tier difference. You might have concerns about maybe them choking. They've never been able to prove it and win a title or anything like that. But I think that's why they're at number 4 right now, rather than being higher. That's not an argument to put them lower down the list. They're at the bottom of their tier in Europe.
Yeah, I think.
Who would you replace them with, Wyatt, if you were to place number 4?
He wants to say Vikings. He wants to say Vikings.
Maybe, but I actually don't think so. I think Vikings should be in 5th.
Yeah, I don't think any of the Brazilian
teams
what it
is?
Beat FPX.
When I hear about FPX at this point, I get an emotional reaction. It clouds my logical Valorant mind because I've just seen them come so close, and I've wanted it. I've wanted it for them. It always comes so close. It never happens.
Yeah.
They
Here's
always fall short, and it makes me sad. Especially when I predict them to win so many times, and it just never happens. So there really is, though, something about their inability to get it done in the final hour that is...
It is worrying.
Worrying,
at this point, it's
and it is clouding
worrying.
my mind. But I do think they deserve to be in 4th. They did look, as you might say, unbelievable. And...
You can feel the momentum building for Reykjavik.
I could feel...
You can feel the FPX momentum building for Reykjavik.
I am comfortable with them at 4th, but it's an emotional, painful placement for me.
I think one thing with FPX and why this is so painful is that you've seen them fail and you've seen them not have opportunities to do what Sentinels did when they failed. Sentinels played against LG. They struggled. They played against Envy. They struggled, right? But they always came back and ended up looking so much better. FPX, we've never seen that opportunity. We have literally never seen them be able to stumble and then try again, right? Because they just breeze through in challengers to make it to Masters in the first place. And then they get to the single elimination part, and that's where they stumble. Against a team that everybody was probably going to stumble against too. Heretics stumbled against Ascent.
Definitely.
So I think it's slightly like a thing of, the format's kind of made it so that they look worse than they are, because all those other games, they looked fantastic. Against Defuse, against Guild, like they looked really good.
Yeah, they did.
That is a great point. But yeah, I'm comfortable with them at 4th.
Yeah, and then I do think the next logical place to go...
It has to be Vikings.
Is Vikings, because we don't, at that point, have another great candidate.
I mean, I'm also confident that if you look at all the other teams, Vikings would beat all the other teams.
Yeah.
I mean, they are just better than the rest of the teams, I think.
Yes, I agree with that as well. But now... So, I'm not really confident then, though, when we get outside of the top 5. Because I think... I mean... The next best team in North America is FaZe, and fuck it, throw Envy on the list as well. Right?
Yeah, I mean, you could throw Envy on that list. I would not put 100 Thieves.
Are we disrespecting Gen.G by putting Envy on there?
No, I don't think we're disrespecting Gen.G at all. No.
By putting Envy on there?
Gen.G beat them?
No. Gen.G may have beaten them, but they had like...
They went on the run.
But the whole of 2021, Gen.G has not been a better team than Envy.
Yeah, definitely.
No,
not.
because they were making moves, and they were that is the thing. Yeah, they were making moves and still integrate. Like once Kus had been integrated and they had more time with their coach MC, you can see the upwards trajectory. So maybe there's a possibility that they could end up on the low end of this list moving forward. But yeah, I do think Envy should be on there instead of Gen.G, given that Envy were able to beat Sentinels in impressive fashion and win the Challenger.
I don't think it would be crazy for Gen.G to be better than Envy at this when we get to the top 10, like when we eventually like to surpass them, because if they continue their trajectory, I think they might be a better team than Envy soon. Like
I think we're talking about teams that aren't even going to be on the top 10 here. I mean, in comparison to some of the guys in the EU, like Guild, for example, I think showed like incredible maybe results. Diffuse. There you go. That maybe is the team that I wanted to say instead of Guild, but like. I feel like these guys looked so strong and actually went toe to toe with some of those top EU teams that we're saying. I think that region has bigger depth than NA in overall.
It really does.
What if
now.
if we go ahead and eliminate some teams from the list? Teams we know aren't going to be top 10.
Honestly, the only team I think that we should eliminate right now is probably Envy.
Right?
I think the other. Yes.
Well, he means from the list.
No,
at the
from
top.
the bottom side. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to eliminate
Like
teams
people
that
who are
are
not
for
on
sure
top 10,
not
let's
going to be
eliminate
top
them.
10 here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like for sure we would not put top 10. Like I would not put 100 Thieves top 10 right now.
Oh, you mean from down there?
Yeah, from down there. Yeah, because that way we don't have to look at all these names. We just get them out of there.
It's also we've basically got the top 10. I think already though.
You think so?
I think so. The team that I'm gonna bring up here though is NIP, because if we're gonna talk about Diffuse and Guild and that kind of stuff, what the hell do we think about NIP?
I mean, this is the problem.
They did beat Ascend.
Yeah, they did. They did beat them.
Yeah,
and they beat G2 twice.
Yep.
So
they've looked reasonably good, but then also terrible at times. Not terrible, but just they've looked great at some moments, and then so lackluster at others.
Yeah, you're right. Do we? Okay, I think Avast is. We should do what Avast has mentioned.
Yeah, we should
eliminate the teams that there's just no way.
For sure, we're not going to be in the conversation.
100 Thieves,
anymore.
no way.
Yeah, get 100 Thieves fucking out of there.
No way. But we could just be ignorant. Gen.G,
LG,
no way.
LG, no fucking way.
Vision Strikers, maybe. I think we could leave them.
Yeah, leave them. Because I want to put them so bad.
G2
just for the
be.
effect.
New Turn,
no.
No, G2 can't be. They can't be right now.
No.
New Turn, definitely
no.
not. Force, no.
No.
X10 could be, but we're ignorant.
Nah.
Team Liquid, no. Gambit,
Pain, definitely not.
Could be because we're.
I didn't watch the finals.
The thing is, though, I don't. So from what I understand from talking to people who scrim within Europe, the top CIS teams of Gambit and Forza, and actually this applies to the top Turkish teams as well, are outside of the top 10 in Europe.
Okay.
Or at least like scraping the top 10 in Europe. So I would expect Gambit to be, really competitive with teams like Alliance, I guess.
Yeah.
Which I suppose isn't actually top 10. That's like top 7 or 6 or something. But like they're not gonna. Sure. I don't think that Gambit is gonna make it into the top 10 of the world, even though they just won the CIS.
I'd agree with that take.
Do we also factor in like who's actually possible to get in here, because we're not going to have this many teams of EU going to Reykjavik.
No.
True, actually.
But the thing is, we're not ranking it based off who's going to land. We're ranking it based off the top 10 teams in the world, right?
That's fair. That's fair.
We'll do the LAN one another time.
I mean, that would actually be our real preds for Reykjavik. Yeah, that'll happen.
But we can get rid of Gambit.
Yeah, get rid of Gambit.
Pain. Yeah,
I get rid of Football List,
well.
Sharks, and Pain.
I think
the
Sharks
only Brazil team left is Furia.
The Sharks are in the discussion.
Really?
They have to be. I'm sorry, they have to be in the discussion.
Over Furia?
Yes.
Well,
okay.
I think over Furia.
Maybe.
Just leave them both. There's not a lot of teams left.
I guess that's fair, actually. I forgot that they had that really good game versus Vikings. It's true.
And they beat Game Landers. That's what I'm factoring. Which Furia could not do. Okay. From here, God, I mean, this is just...
It's tough.
I'm going to start from number 10. Where do we think we're putting FaZe here? Do we think FaZe are better than Game Landers, Diffuse, Guild, and Envy? Better than Envy, I think. You have to put them above Envy.
Wait, who? Yes. Sorry?
FaZe.
Oh, FaZe.
Because we have FaZe at de facto 10, but I don't think they're going to end up at 10.
No, FaZe are better than Envy.
They're definitely better than Envy. Do we think they're better than Guild?
Dude, I have FaZe. Like, I want to keep putting FaZe even higher, just because in my mind, FaZe has such a shock value. Like, FaZe is one of the teams that's like, regionally, you'd never expect NA to have like these surprise factors. But FaZe is one of those teams that I'm just like, yeah, if they go up against a team that's not prepared, who's never played against FaZe, they're going to struggle.
Yeah, but they just get, but the thing is, they do get rolled by teams with just a lot better organization than them, like Sentinels, but also we're talking about like, I don't think FaZe would necessarily match up with any of the top 5 for sure, right? Because I feel like they're going to be so
maybe
structured.
FPX they can.
Maybe, I don't know. FPX is so structured though, and they have really good players. But I could see them playing against Guild and Diffuse and maybe Gamelanders. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Guild also has been a weird one for me because if you had asked me a couple weeks ago, I would have definitely put Guild above FaZe. But Guild has kind of had some rough-ish results relatively recently. Like, they haven't looked as good to me.
Yeah,
I mean, Guild have had a weird 2021.
Yeah.
As have FaZe. Actually, kind of similar, well, to some extent, similar trajectory, where they were both starting pretty low at the beginning of the year and then ended up having good runs in Masters at the very end.
I think you would have to put Guild above Diffuse, though, on the basis that they beat them during Masters, and generally speaking, over the course of... Actually, I don't even know whether this is really fits our time constraints, but Guild have been the more notable team during the recent months, I think.
Did have that one, the beginning of stage 1, though. They were not good.
No.
They weren't
really
very good
struggling.
at the very beginning of stage 1.
But you could have said, you could say the same about FaZe.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If you go back and watch, if you want to experience pain.
FaZe had more to go through than these guys. Don't forget, yeah, sure, they struggled at first, but then all they had to go through was a couple best of threes. FaZe had to go through a double Elam bracket with best of threes as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, FaZe washed everyone but Sentinels.
Yes.
There was no close game for them but Sen. And I suppose the one map against NRG.
I feel like I'm being too EU biased to put FaZe underneath Guild and Diffuse, but I do believe that that's the case. I don't
really.
Yeah, I think that FaZe could beat them, but I think they would have to both catch them off guard and skill diff them again.
I think FaZe would beat Diffuse for sure, in my opinion.
Really?
I think FaZe will beat because I feel like their styles are far closer comparatively to Guild's style. And I definitely put the FaZe Smeeg over the Diffuse Smeeg at times. Like, in terms of the raw power and, like, the fragging potential that they have. Like, because Diffuse really was, like, a very, very aggressive team at times.
Yeah. I
don't know where to... I think I just don't know where to rank FaZe.
So murky.
It really is.
I'm still not...
so hard because...
Do we bring out the coin?
It's recent as well. There's not a lot of time.
Yeah. I'm happy to put FaZe higher up because they have actually had good success within North America, but I am also not convinced that like they really deserve a spot that high up. I think that they're in a honeymoon period. I think it'll chill out. I think they won't look as great as they have done previously. I think if they were playing on an international stage, they wouldn't look as good because there'd be better teams, more structured teams to punish them. But when you weigh it on the evidence, they have actually achieved more than Guild and Diffuse this year.
Yeah, the problem is, though, if you look at them for the same thing we were discussing about Sentinels and Ascend, the difference in who they were playing against, FaZe washed all of the NA teams that are slumping. They really didn't have a high-level competition outside of Sentinels, who they just got blown out by.
Roster, I don't find to be nearly as deep.
Yeah, but
as
they didn't then Envy.
They did beat Envy.
Yeah, that's the best team they beat was Envy, who were not. Well, I'm not happy to be putting Envy on this list potentially. It feels like they almost shouldn't be, but they kind of just are by default. Still,
yeah. Envy were definitely like they were on a ridiculous heater in challenges too. Yeah. It's just that they didn't manage to sustain that.
Right.
Twice.
Yeah.
I keep thinking back to First Strike, man. And
yeah.
Envy flumping out of there as well. It just hurts me so bad.
Oh man, that's such a true because I truly don't put this FaZe roster on like the same, even close to the same tier as like Sentinels. But I'm giving Sentinels a pass because of how their depth and having tens, and I just like because sure they beat NA teams when they're looking bad, but their roster overall and their depth looks so good. But FaZe does not look the same. FaZe looks like insanely one-dimensional at times.
I actually strongly believe that like FaZe is very good, and I think that they can turn into a team that will end up being like Sentinels. Honestly, flexible, able to accept against a lot of different teams. But right now, we have not yet seen proof that they will change, or not. It's not that they need change. It's that they need to be able to prove that they can beat teams who change against them, right? Which is Sentinels.
Yeah. Do they have a plan
are going
B?
to be teams like FPX. Sentinels showed the blueprint. I said that last episode to how to beat FaZe. And other teams are going to pick that up very easily. And if they have not yet shown that they can change that, then I don't feel comfortable putting them higher up.
Here's another question for you guys.
There you go.
Which is, do you think that FaZe would beat the Brazilian team?
No.
Like, what level do you think FaZe... Because FaZe love to opt into a similar style to the Brazilian teams, actually. They love to swing, they love to take duels, they love to try and skill diff their opponents. They play at a high tempo, they like to thrive in the chaos. I think Brazil would actually love playing against a team like FaZe.
I agree with that.
It is what they play against all the time.
So,
and the Brazilian players might be, despite these teams being on 5th and 6th right now, they might have players that are in like the number 1 through 10 spots in the world, like several players in that area.
But
so
here's my question. If we're assuming that FaZe wouldn't beat Game Landers and Vikings, which I think is a very reasonable comparison, reasonable take, what about Furia and Sharks? Like, are we saying that?
That's a good question.
Because the thing with Brazil is that it's hard to slice a tier gap in the top 4. It's like the top 3 of Europe. They're really tightly together.
This is why I wanted to leave Sharks on there, but it's tough because it's like, I feel like there's something, if you don't have these NA teams on the list, it feels like there's some sort of insane devaluing of their placements in the scene.
Yeah.
But the scene was not in a good spot for this tournament. It was not like in First Strike, there was a lot more of a depth of teams. Like TSM were still really good at the time. 100 Thieves were insane at the time. There were more teams playing at a high level than in this most recent NA tournament. So
take history and look at how CS:GO has developed in NA and how it's always been for Overwatch and stuff as well, right? Like what would you say is like the amount of teams that would do well? And you could actually just look at the gap, to be honest, between Sentinels.
I mean, if we base it off of like the regional
else.
gap there, this would be a relatively fair distribution of like, you're not even close to the majority of the best teams in the top 10, and you're not even going to be necessarily at the top, but you have them in the list, you know? Yeah. That's sort of how it's always broken down. It's like, you might have one divergent in a team, but then the rest, like, they won't compete for the top 5 to 6 spots, but they can definitely still be at the top.
3 is too much for me.
Yeah. So... I mean, the most I would say is maybe you bump off Envy, keep FaZe, and add another Brazilian team.
That's what I'm thinking. That was where my brain was going, because the more I think about it, I don't think NIP deserves to be on this list. I think they still have something to prove before they get into the top echelon of Europe. They're probably in the same tier as Guild and Diffuse, but they haven't actually shown enough good shit recently for me to feel confident about them. Vision Strikers, I don't have confidence in at the moment. I don't think they crack the top 10 list. And so it becomes a case of Furia and Sharks to me. Of like, who takes this 10th
I'd agree
spot.
with that. I'd agree with Furia Sharks being the last 2 remaining. And then it's a question of, not only who's better, but if we don't think FaZe would beat these teams, would we think Guild or Diffuse would beat these teams?
I don't know, mate. I actually don't know.
Here's
the thing. Tough. I think Brazil is so dangerous, but they're not going to be a force on the world stage, because once you get to the caliber of teams that are going to be at like Reykjavik, for example, the elite of the elite, I'm talking Heretics, Sentinels, Ascend, FPX, you know, like these absolute elite teams are going to be able to figure them out. But I think once you get down to the caliber of teams like Guild and Diffuse and Envy, you know, for example, those teams haven't completed their game yet. They're not the most. They're not going to be able to adapt their own style to counter their opponents as easily. I don't think they've got the foundation in place. They've got some of it, but they don't have all of it yet.
I think I could easily see a future where when it does get to the world stage, Brazil can come out swinging at first. Then there will be a period where they get figured out, and then they have to develop the region's game to be more well-rounded. And then they'll remain a top contending team because the individual talent is off the fucking charts. I mean, they genuinely, if you were to make a top 10 players list, there would probably be more players from Brazil than any region, I think. I think it's very possible.
Maybe.
Like, the talent is insane in the scene. It's just, it's going to be about long-term, how the teams actually develop in terms of the actual strategy. But right now, I mean, I'm okay with Game Landers at 6, I think. I do think I would put them above Guild, FaZe, and Diffuse. I think you have to put Sharks in. Because
Furia?
Just based on result, based on beating Game Landers, having a good game against the Vikings, I think you have to put them in over Furia.
Yeah,
fair. I mean, I'll give you. I mean, it's so close that I'm just like, fuck it. Like, honestly, it's tough for me to call, but like Sharks, I think that's not a bad pick. So fuck it. Though they did, I'll keep Sharks. Fine.
And I think it's reasonable to leave them at the 10th position as well. Because we're not talking about a Brazilian team that's dominated their region. We're not talking about a Brazilian team that's like that won Masters or anything like that at this point. We're talking about like a solid team.
Yeah, they're just a really good team in the region. But they could they are.
I think they could have won Masters if they didn't go up against Vikings first round.
Yeah, they're capable of winning a tournament.
Yeah,
for sure.
They're definitely. I mean, they have won a tournament. They just won against Game Landers.
Okay, but then are we comfortable with Guild over FaZe, FaZe over Diffuse?
I don't know, mate. I don't know.
This is a hard one.
I'm so sad that Vision Strikers went out without a whimper, man. Just because, bro, that streak in world rankings, I feel like should be valued super high, man.
Yeah,
it's just so.
I think if they had better recent results, I would be comfortable maybe putting them at 10th.
Yeah, if they didn't look weak.
But they looked really weak in their latest results. So
yeah, that's the problem. They just kind of stumbled to a victory against NewTurn.
The maps they lost were so poor. Actually, no. The split map they still played pretty decently, but the game they lost on Bind was just awful. But
don't forget the other two that they just stomped them. They just looked so good on the other ones too.
They did look pretty decent, but also NewTurn, I think NewTurn's probably the weakest of any of the second best teams in the major regions by quite a shot. I mean, if we're comparing NewTurn to Heretics or to FaZe or to Game Landers, I mean,
it's a big difference between one and two.
Close, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Can we put honorable mention?
Absolutely. Yeah,
they're an honorable. I mean,
we can leave Vision Strikers just at the bottom.
We had the 4 hovering outside with what was it? Vision Strikers, Furia, Envy, and
Envy that we threw out.
Those are honorable mentions.
But I also think that the game has just gotten, like, other teams have gotten so fierce since First Strike. There's a bunch of new teams on here. Ascend is a new team. FPX have improved. Vikings is a new team. Guild has improved. FaZe has improved. Diffuse
who would have thought
improved.
FaZe would be on our top 10 world rankings at First Strike? I mean,
I know.
Yeah, and Diffuse came out of Sharks as a new team. Yeah.
There's a lot that has changed since the beginning of 2021, and these teams are just getting better and better and better. The scene is getting more and more competitive.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be okay with locking this in because I don't know. What do you? The arguments between Guild, FaZe, and Diffuse, I think it's just so close and.
Yeah.
Honestly, I simply do not have the capabilities to divine any further into these last 4.
Nobody does. That's why we're doing it anyways.
Yeah.
I feel good with this because, okay, Sharks, fine. We'll put them at the bottom. They had some good recent results, crazy mechanical skill. Like, don't feel confident in the other region. So Sharks, cool. Diffuse, think they've done well, but I think they're kind of new in terms of, like, showing some good results recently. FaZe, their run was overall more impressive. They have, like, the full SME capability. And Guild overall, even if they've slumped recently, have had consistently pretty good results throughout their time and have, like, some very, very talented players in a very tough region. So I'm feeling that. I'm feeling just that's that. You know,
it feels
I'm
like
feeling
there's
good.
a bit of
I just feel like Diffuse is the one team that I'm like, do they really belong here?
Really?
Outside of that,
I think Diffuse. I think Diffuse
really?
deserve to be. If FaZe is here, Diffuse deserves to be here.
I think that Diffuse deserve their spot. I think Diffuse showed some really excellent stuff. They barely got beaten by Guild. They had excellent performances in terms of the eye test. Their defensive side is much better than their attacking side, but I think they're a very, very good team. Who would you put over them?
I was going to say I would maybe move them up to 8th.
Oh, you want to move them
FaZe?
up?
Maybe.
We got to lock it in soon, boys.
Okay. Yeah, I think...
Never mind, we got to lock it in. I'm okay with locking this in. I'm okay with locking this in.
You know what? I'm just going to do it because they're in A.
Forever.
Fuck it. I think FaZe deserves to go over Diffuse. Fuck it. NA boy over here. There they go. They're above Diffuse.
I think that's fine.
I'm fine with it. We'll lock it in. How long?
Oh, 7 hours. I mean, Kurt said he had nothing to do. So
at least the most important top 5 was super quick from us. Actually surprising that was that easy.
That's always that is the easier part.
It is.
It's when you get down to the
weeds.
Yeah, the slightly lower tier. It is amazing.
Yeah, it becomes all over the place. But oh god, it makes me so excited for Reykjavik. Of what
Can't
could
wait
be.
to see our rankings be totally wrong.
Oh, absolutely. They will be utterly and completely incorrect. And I'm sure you guys are going to tell us in the comments exactly how incorrect they are. But now it's time for the most important topic of the entire show, the one that we always end on. What is it?
This is my weekly award.
Why is weekly award?
It's Wyatt's weekly award. That's a classic one. Yeah.
I love that one. I like that one.
Good. Do you want to grab it? Yeah. Wrestling award.
I just like it because it's wrestling. It's just wrestling, and it's just it's fun to me.
This week, the weekly award is going to go to Katie from C9 White for being the clear standout MVP of the first Game Changers. She just popped off. She's a ridiculously talented Jett. She had the two maps against the Moon Raccoons were just ridiculous. She had that insane ace clip, which I don't know if you have that, Kurt, somewhere on Reddit, and I know she tweeted it as well. Here we go. It was just
this is so
pretty absurd. Holding on bind B. But yeah, I mean, she was just the clear MVP of the tournament. She's mega talented. And she gets the award. Simple, easy. And also, just that's a nice little flick with the classic.
Ooh.
But yeah, congrats to Katie and C9 White for winning the first Game Changer and for being the MVP of the tournament.
Yeah, and I am really looking forward to their game
against Sonic.
Yeah, against Sonic.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for that because I think we've always been waiting for Cloud9 White to be able to like string their decent results together in a tournament to get deep. And okay, they're in the same side of the bracket as Sentinels, so Cloud9 White probably not going to qualify this time around. But it would be awesome to see that game go down. And I don't really care which way it goes. It's just going to be a sick game. You've got the Oceanic team who are fighting for their region, and then you've got the women's team that are fighting for their kind of portion of the Valorant scene as well. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
It'd be hard for me if it wasn't Cloud9 White and NA. Like if it wasn't that NA team, if it was any other NA team, I'd be probably breaking roots and going for the OC boys.
Yeah, I'm gonna be rooting for Sonic if they end up going against Sentinels. To be cool.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be fun.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. That should be a really exciting match, though. What should they comment? What should people comment?
Yeah.
Huh?
Well, I mean, I know they're already going to tell us what was wrong with our.
Yeah, tell us what was wrong with our rankings.
Yeah.
Europeans, tell us why why we have any NA teams on there at all. Europeans, make sure to let us know.
Who's the best region? Easy.
Yeah,
there we go. That's easy.
Who's the best region right now? Yeah, I mean, that does it for this week. When we come back, we have Back Chat coming up. I don't have a guess for that. I should probably go and get one. And then we'll have the episode coming out you afterwards. Yeah.
It'll just be us. Just interview me.
I assume we'll be doing co-streams at some point for challenges coming up as well, if it's being run by NSG. But I don't have any plans, so I haven't thought about it yet. So maybe we'll tweet it out though. Go follow our Twitter at Plat Chat Podcast. You'll be able to get all the updates on what we're up to. All right. Bye.
That's it. Okay.